The gunshot echoed through the cathedral just as Elena signed her name. Blood wasn't supposed to be part of a wedding ceremony. But when you marry a mafia boss to save your brother's life, nothing goes according to tradition. Adrian Voss stood at the altar with a bullet wound spreading across his white shirt, his eyes locked on hers with an intensity that promised this was only the beginning. Outside, her family's empire was burning. Inside, she'd just become property of the man who lit the match. If you want to see how a forced marriage becomes something neither of them expected, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The first time Elena Rowan truly understood what fear felt like, she was standing in her father's study 3 weeks after his funeral, staring at a man who shouldn't have existed. Adrian Voss sat in her father's chair like he'd been born to it. His suit was custom-tailored, charcoal gray that probably cost more than her car. His hands were folded on the desk, clean, manicured, the hands of someone who paid other people to do his violence. But Elena had heard the stories. Everyone in the city had heard the stories about what Adrian Voss did to people who crossed him. "Miss Rowan," his voice was measured, almost polite. "Please sit." She remained standing, her heels dug into the Persian rug, the same rug where she'd played as a child while her father worked. The study smelled different now, leather, and something darker, like expensive cologne mixed with gun oil. "This is my house," she said. Her voice shook slightly and she hated herself for it. "You don't get to invite me to sit in my own house." Adrian's expression didn't change. He reached into his jacket and Elena's whole body tensed, but he only pulled out a folder. He set it on the desk between them. "Your house," he repeated. "Let's discuss that." He opened the folder. Inside were papers, legal documents with official seals, bank statements with numbers that made Elena's stomach drop. She recognized her father's signature on half of them. "Your father owed me $17 million, Adrian said, plus interest accrued over 3 years. The total debt is now $23 million. Elena's knees went weak, but she forced herself to stay upright. "That's impossible. My father ran a legitimate shipping business." "Your father ran a money laundering operation disguised as a shipping business." Adrian's tone was factual, almost bored. "He moved cash for 6 different criminal organizations, including mine. He got greedy, started skimming, thought I wouldn't notice." "You're lying." "I wish I was." Adrian pushed the folder toward her. "Look for yourself. Bank records. Transaction histories. Shipping manifests for cargo that never existed. Your father was good at what he did. That's why I trusted him with my money. That's why his betrayal cost him everything." Elena grabbed the folder, her hand shaking as she rifled through pages of evidence. Account numbers she'd never seen, companies registered under her father's name that she'd never heard of. Payments moving through shell corporations in the Cayman Islands, Singapore, Switzerland. "No," she whispered. "No, he wouldn't." "He did." Adrian stood, buttoning his jacket. He was tall, over 6 feet, and the way he moved reminded Elena of a predator, efficient, purposeful. "And now his debts pass to his estate, which means they pass to you and your brother." Michael. Her little brother, who was only 16 and still cried sometimes when he thought no one was listening, who'd worshipped their father, who'd been destroyed by his death. "We don't have that kind of money," Elena said. "Even if we sold everything." "You don't have anything to sell. I already own it." Adrian gestured around the study. "This house, your father's company, the cars, the vacation property in the Hamptons that you think no one knows about. It's all collateral against the debt. It's all mine now." The room tilted. Elena grabbed the desk for support. "Then take it," she said. "Take everything. Just leave us alone." If only it were that simple. Adrian walked around the desk, moving closer. Elena fought the urge to step back. "Your father's betrayal didn't just cost me money. It cost me reputation. It made me look weak. In my world, Miss Rowan, perception is everything. If I let this slide, every 2-bit hustler in the city will think they can steal from me and walk away. He's dead. What more do you want? I want what I'm owed." Adrian stopped 3 feet from her. Up close, she could see details she'd missed before. A thin scar along his left cheekbone, eyes so dark they were almost black, the subtle tension in his jaw that suggested he wasn't as calm as he pretended. "And since you can't pay me in cash, You're going to pay me another way." Elena's blood turned cold. She'd heard stories about what happened to women who ended up indebted to men like Adrian Voss. Her hand moved instinctively toward the letter opener on the desk. Adrian noticed. His mouth curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. "Not that," he said. "I'm not interested in unwilling companions, Miss Rowan. I have standards." Then what? Marriage. The word hung in the air between them like a gun going off. "You're insane," Elena breathed. "I'm practical. Your family name still carries weight in certain circles. The Rowans were respected once before your father's gambling addiction and drug problem destroyed everything he built. My father didn't have a gambling addiction. He was $60,000 in debt to 3 different casinos. He was also addicted to prescription painkillers, which is why he drove his car off that bridge." Adrian's voice was clinical, detached. "The official report said mechanical failure. I paid a lot of money to make sure it said that. Your brother doesn't need to know his father was high on OxyContin when he died." Elena's vision blurred. She wanted to scream, to hit him, to grab the letter opener and drive it into his throat, but her body wouldn't move. "You marry me," Adrian continued, "and the debt is forgiven. Your brother keeps his college fund. You keep your freedom, relatively speaking. We attend functions together, present a united front to my business associates, and maintain the appearance of a legitimate partnership between our families. I'd rather die. That can be arranged. But then what happens to Michael?" Adrian pulled out his phone, swiped to a photo. It showed her brother leaving his private school, backpack slung over one shoulder, completely unaware he was being photographed. 16 years old, good student, plays lacrosse, has a girlfriend named Sarah who he's too nervous to actually talk to. Elena lunged. She didn't even realize she was moving until Adrian caught her wrist, his grip iron hard, but not painful. They were inches apart now. She could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating off his body. "Touch him," she hissed, "and I will kill you myself." "I believe you." Adrian released her wrist. "Which is why you're going to marry me, because the alternative is watching your brother learn exactly how cruel this world can be. You're a monster." "Yes." He said it simply, without pride or shame. "But I'm a monster who keeps his word. Marry me, play your part, and Michael lives a normal life. He goes to college, gets a job, never knows the truth about what his father really was. You have my guarantee." "Your guarantee?" Elena laughed, the sound bitter and broken. "Why would I trust anything you say?" Adrian reached into his jacket again. This time he pulled out a small jewelry box. He opened it to reveal a ring, a massive diamond surrounded by smaller stones set in platinum. It was beautiful and obscene and probably worth more than her father's entire legitimate business. "Because I've been planning this for 6 months," he said quietly. "Ever since your father's debts became unmanageable. I had this ring designed specifically for you. I've had my lawyers draw up a prenuptial agreement that protects your interests and ensures Michael's education is fully funded regardless of what happens between us. I've already begun restructuring your father's company to operate legally, which means 50 employees keep their jobs instead of going to prison as accessories to money laundering. He held the box out to her. "I'm not asking you to love me, Elena. I'm not even asking you to like me. I'm asking you to be smart enough to recognize when you have no other options." Elena stared at the ring. The diamond caught the light from the desk lamp, throwing tiny rainbows across the walls. She thought about Michael, who'd already lost their father, who'd barely survived the grief, who'd break completely if he lost his sister too. "How long?" she asked. "How long what? How long does this marriage have to last? A year? 2? Adrian closed the jewelry box. "Until I say otherwise." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting." He set the box on the desk. "The wedding is in 3 days. Cathedral of St. Catherine, 5 in the evening. I've already sent invitations to everyone who matters. You'll wear white because that's what people expect. You'll smile. You'll say your vows. And then you'll come home with me to the estate where you'll live as my wife." "I need time to think." "You don't have time. I've been patient enough." Adrian checked his watch, a Patek Philippe that probably cost 6 figures. "Every hour you delay is another hour Michael is vulnerable. There are people in this city who'd love to hurt you through him. People who'd see a 16-year-old boy as an easy target. You're threatening me." "I'm being honest. The moment word spreads that the Rowan family can't pay their debts, the vultures will circle. Some of them are worse than me. Some of them don't have standards. He moved toward the door, then paused. The ring is yours whether you agree or not. Consider it a gift. I'll send a car for you tomorrow morning. We have details to discuss. And if I'm not here when the car arrives? Adrian turned back to face her. For the first time, she saw something shift in his expression, something dark and absolute. Then I'll find you, he said softly, and we'll have a very different conversation about consequences. He left without another word. The door clicked shut behind him, and Elena was alone in the study, surrounded by evidence of her father's lies and her own shattered illusions. She picked up the jewelry box. The ring sparkled innocently, a beautiful trap. Her phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Still on for dinner tonight? Sarah wants to meet you finally. Elena's hand tightened around the box until the edges bit into her palm. She texted back, can't wait, love you. Then she opened the box and stared at the ring that represented the death of every future she'd imagined for herself. The next morning, a black Mercedes arrived at exactly 9 a.m. Elena had slept maybe 2 hours, spending most of the night reading through the documents Adrian had left. Each page confirmed what he'd told her. Her father had been a criminal. Everything she'd believed about him was a lie. The driver was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a professional demeanor. She introduced herself as Lydia and said nothing else during the 20-minute drive to Adrian's estate. Estate was an understatement. The property sprawled across what had to be 50 acres, hidden behind walls topped with security cameras. The house itself was modern, all glass and steel and clean lines, completely unlike the old money mansions Elena was used to. It looked like something from an architecture magazine. Beautiful and cold. Lydia led her through a foyer with ceilings 2 stories high, past rooms decorated in shades of gray and white that probably required a full-time staff to maintain. Everything was immaculate. Everything was perfect. Nothing felt lived in. Adrian was waiting in what he called the morning room, another absurdly large space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking manicured gardens. He was on his phone, speaking rapid Italian to someone who was clearly pissing him off. When he saw Elena, he ended the call mid-sentence. "You came," he said. "Did I have a choice?" "There's always a choice. Yours just happens to have very unpleasant alternatives." He gestured to a chair across from him. A breakfast spread was laid out on the table. Fresh fruit, pastries, coffee that smelled expensive. "Have you eaten?" "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway. You're too thin." Elena's temper flared. "Excuse me? You've lost weight since your father died. Stress, probably. Grief. But if you're going to be my wife, you need to take better care of yourself." Adrian poured coffee into a cup, added cream without asking how she took it. "People will be watching us, scrutinizing every detail. If you look sick or fragile, they'll assume I'm mistreating you." "You are mistreating me. You're forcing me into marriage." "I'm offering you a business arrangement that benefits both of us. Don't be dramatic." Elena wanted to throw the coffee in his face. Instead, she took the cup and drank. It was perfect, exactly how she liked it. The realization made her skin crawl. "How did you know?" she asked. "Know what?" "How I take my coffee." Adrian smiled slightly. "I know a lot of things about you, Elena. I make it my business to know everything about people I deal with. We've never dealt with each other before, haven't we?" He selected a croissant, broke it apart with his fingers. "Your father brought you to one of my galleries 6 years ago. You were 20 years old. You spent 40 minutes staring at a Monet, completely lost in it. You didn't know I was watching you from the 2nd floor." Elena's stomach turned over. "You're saying you've been watching me for 6 years?" "I'm saying I remember you. There's a difference." Adrian ate a piece of croissant, casual. "You were wearing a blue dress. You had your hair pulled back. You looked happy. I remember thinking your father didn't deserve a daughter like you." "Stop." "Stop what?" "Stop pretending this is anything other than what it is. You're blackmailing me into marriage because my father stole from you. Don't dress it up with stories about art galleries and blue dresses." "I'm not dressing it up. I'm telling you the truth." Adrian set down the croissant. "I could have handled your father's debt a dozen different ways. I could have had him killed before he drove off that bridge. I could have taken everything and left you and Michael with nothing. I didn't. Want to know why?" "Not particularly. Because 6 years ago, I watched you fall in love with a painting, and I thought to myself that anyone who could feel that deeply about art might be worth knowing." He leaned back in his chair. So yes, I've been watching you. I've kept track of your life. I know you graduated top of your class from Columbia. I know you turned down 3 job offers to come home and help your father with his business. I know you read poetry on Sunday mornings, and you hate mushrooms, and you have a scar on your left ankle from when you fell off your bike when you were 9. Elena's hands started shaking. You're insane. I'm thorough. There's a difference. This is... She couldn't find words. This is stalking. This is psychotic. Call it what you want. The facts don't change. In 3 days, you're going to marry me. In 3 days, your brother's future becomes secure. And in 3 days, you're going to start a very different life than the one you planned. Adrian stood, buttoned his jacket. Lydia will take you shopping this afternoon. You need a wedding dress and whatever else women need for these things. The budget is unlimited. Buy what you want. I don't want anything from you. Then buy things for Michael. Buy him new lacrosse equipment. Buy his girlfriend jewelry. I don't care. But you're going to that dress fitting because I need you to look the part when we stand at that altar. He started to leave, then paused. One more thing, he said. After the wedding, you'll live here. I'm having a suite prepared for you. Your own bedroom, bathroom, sitting room. You'll have privacy. I won't touch you without your permission. This marriage is for appearances, not my personal entertainment. How generous, Elena said bitterly. It is, actually. Most men in my position wouldn't offer that courtesy. Adrian's expression hardened. I'm a lot of things, Elena, but I'm not a rapist. Remember that when you're deciding how much you hate me. He left her alone with the breakfast spread and the view of gardens she'd never asked to see. The dress fitting was a nightmare. Lydia drove her to an exclusive boutique where the staff had clearly been warned to expect her. They fawned and measured and brought out dress after dress, each more elaborate than the last. Elena tried on 12 before she found one that didn't make her want to scream. It was simple, silk with minimal beading, a neckline that didn't plunge, sleeves that covered her shoulders. White, because Adrian was right about expectations. You look beautiful, the seamstress said, pinning the hem. Elena stared at her reflection. She looked like a bride, like someone happy and in love, walking toward a future she'd chosen. The lie of it made her throat tight. We'll have it ready in 2 days, the seamstress continued. Mr. Voss has excellent taste. He chose well. He chose the boutique, I chose the dress. Of course. The seamstress's smile didn't waver. My mistake. After the fitting, Lydia suggested lunch. Elena declined. She wanted to go home, to see Michael, to pretend for a few more hours that her life wasn't ending in 3 days. But when Lydia pulled up to the Rowan house, there were cars in the driveway, expensive cars, and standing on the front steps, smoking a cigarette like he owned the place, was a man Elena had never seen before. He was younger than Adrian, maybe early 30s, with blonde hair and a smile that set off every alarm bell in Elena's system. Can I help you? She asked, getting out of the Mercedes. The man flicked his cigarette into the bushes. You must be Elena. I've heard a lot about you. I don't know you. No, but you're about to. He extended a hand. Marcus Dane. I'm Adrian's business partner, also his oldest friend, which means I know all his secrets. Elena ignored the hand. What are you doing at my house? Technically Adrian's house now, but who's counting? Marcus dropped his hand, unbothered. I'm here to give you some friendly advice about your upcoming wedding. I don't need advice. You really do. Marcus moved closer, lowering his voice. Adrian Voss is a complicated man. Dangerous, obviously. Controlling, definitely. But he's not cruel for the sake of cruelty. If you're smart, you can make this situation work for you. I'm not interested in making anything work. I'm being forced into this. Forced is such a harsh word. Think of it as aggressive negotiation. Marcus grinned. Look, I'm not saying fall in love with the guy. I'm saying learn how to manage him. He responds well to honesty, poorly to deception. He values loyalty above everything else. Give him those things, even superficially, and he'll give you more freedom than you expect. Why are you telling me this? Because I like you. Marcus shrugged. Also because happy Adrian is easier to work with than angry Adrian, and I have a vested interest in keeping him stable. Elena studied him. Marcus had the kind of face that probably charmed its way out of trouble regularly, handsome in an easy, accessible way that was the opposite of Adrian's dark intensity. You're afraid of him, she said. Marcus's smile faltered. Everyone's afraid of him. That's what makes him good at what he does. What exactly does he do? You really want to know? Elena hesitated. Part of her did want to know. Part of her needed to understand exactly what kind of man she was about to marry. But another part, a larger part, was terrified of the answer. No, she said finally. I don't. Smart girl. Marcus pulled out another cigarette, didn't light it. One more thing. Adrian's got enemies, serious ones. They're going to see this marriage as a weakness, a way to get to him through you. Be careful. Don't trust anyone except Lydia. Maybe not even her. Including you? Especially me. I'm charming as hell, but loyal only to myself. He winked, heading toward his car. See you at the wedding, future Mrs. Voss. Elena watched him drive away, then went inside to find her house full of strangers, caterers, decorators, people with clipboards and headsets orchestrating an event she'd never agreed to. Her life, being planned without her consent. She found Michael in his room, headphones on, oblivious to the chaos downstairs. When he saw her, he pulled off the headphones and smiled. The first real smile she'd seen from him in weeks. Hey, he said. How was your day? Elena looked at her brother, 16 years old and still innocent enough to think the world was fair. Still young enough to believe their father had been a good man who died in a tragic accident. She couldn't tell him the truth, couldn't shatter what little peace he'd found. It was fine, she lied. How was school? Good. Sarah asked about dinner on Friday. Is that still happening? Friday, the day after the wedding. Yeah, Elena said. That's still happening. Michael grinned. She's nervous about meeting you. I told her you're not scary, but I don't think she believes me. I'm not scary. You kind of are when you want to be. He grabbed his lacrosse stick, started tossing a ball against the wall. So I heard some guys at school talking about Adrian Voss. They said he's connected to some serious people. Elena's heart stopped. What guys? Just some seniors. They were saying their dads know him or whatever. Business stuff. Michael caught the ball, frowned at her. Why? Is something wrong? No, nothing's wrong. You look weird. I'm just tired. Elena forced a smile. I'm going to take a shower. You good here? Yeah, homework and then dinner with Sarah. Normal Thursday stuff. Normal. The word felt like glass in Elena's chest. She left Michael's room and went to her own, locked the door, and finally let herself fall apart. She cried into her pillow so he wouldn't hear, cried until her throat was raw and her eyes were swollen. Cried for the father she'd lost twice, once to death and once to truth. Cried for the future she'd never have. Cried for the girl in the blue dress who'd spent 40 minutes staring at a painting, not knowing she was being watched by a man who'd one day own her life. When she was empty, she got up and looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red. Her face was blotchy. She looked broken. In 3 days, she'd have to look perfect. She started running the shower, let the steam fill the bathroom. Through the fog on the mirror, she could barely see herself anymore. Maybe that was better. Maybe it was easier to become someone else entirely than to remember who she used to be. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather, clear skies, temperature in the low 70s, the kind of day people paid thousands to guarantee. Elena woke up in her childhood bedroom for the last time and spent 10 minutes staring at the ceiling, trying to find the courage to get out of bed. There was a knock. Lydia, right on schedule. Time to get ready, she said through the door. Elena didn't answer. If she stayed quiet, maybe time would stop. Maybe the wedding would unhappen. The knock came again, louder. Miss Rowan, I have breakfast and mimosas. Don't make me pick this lock. Elena dragged herself up, opened the door. Lydia walked in with a tray that did indeed contain breakfast and mimosas, followed by a team of stylists who descended on Elena like a flock of very expensive birds. They did her hair, her makeup, her nails. They made her skin glow, and her eyes look bigger and her lips look fuller. They transformed her into a version of herself that belonged in magazines, beautiful and polished and completely unreal. When they were done, Elena barely recognized her reflection. Perfect, one of the stylists said. Perfect. The word scraped against Elena's nerves. The dress came next. The seamstress had delivered it that morning, wrapped in layers of tissue paper like something precious. like something worth protecting. Elena stepped into it carefully. The silk whispered against her skin. The weight of it settled on her shoulders like responsibility, like chains made of expensive fabric. Someone zipped it up. Someone else adjusted the train. "Oh," Lydia said softly. "Oh, you look—" "Don't," Elena interrupted. "Please don't." Lydia nodded, understanding. She dismissed the stylists, leaving them alone. "Are you ready?" she asked. "No." "That's the right answer." Lydia handed her a small box. "From Mr. Voss. He wanted you to wear them." Inside were diamond earrings, simple and elegant, worth a fortune, probably. Elena almost refused them on principle, but what was the point? She was already wearing his ring, already carrying his name in a few hours. She put on the earrings. Lydia drove her to the cathedral. On the way, they passed the city Elena had grown up in, familiar streets now feeling foreign, like she was seeing them for the last time. Maybe she was. After today, nothing would be the same. The cathedral was exactly as Adrian had promised, massive, Gothic, filled with people who mattered. Elena recognized faces from her father's social circle, business associates, politicians, people whose names appeared in newspapers, all here to witness Adrian Voss claim his prize. Lydia led her to a private room where she was supposed to wait until the ceremony started. Michael was already there, wearing a suit that made him look too grown up. He turned when she entered and his eyes went wide. "Wow," he said. "You look amazing." Elena's throat tightened. "Thanks. Are you nervous?" "Terrified." "Adrian seems cool, though. I met him earlier. He asked about my lacrosse season." Of course he did. Of course Adrian would charm her brother, would make himself seem safe and normal and not like the man who was forcing her into marriage. "That's great," Elena managed. Michael shifted uncomfortably. "Are you sure you want to do this? I mean, it's kind of fast. Dad's only been gone a few months." Elena looked at her brother, at his concern, his innocence, his complete lack of understanding about what was really happening. "I'm sure," she lied. "Okay." He hugged her carefully, like she might break. "I'm happy for you, really. Adrian's going to take care of you." Elena hugged him back and tried not to scream. Music started playing. Wagner, because of course it was. Traditional and grand and everything a wedding was supposed to be. Lydia appeared at the door. "It's time," Michael offered his arm. "Ready?" "No, never. Not in a million years." "Yes," Elena said. The doors opened and she walked into the cathedral on her brother's arm. 500 faces turned to watch her. The aisle stretched ahead, impossibly long, impossibly short. At the end, standing at the altar in a black tuxedo that probably cost more than a car, was Adrian. He watched her approach with an expression she couldn't read. Not quite happy, not quite cold. Something in between. Something that made her skin prickle with awareness. She reached the altar. Michael kissed her cheek and stepped aside, leaving her alone with the man who'd bought her life. The priest started talking. Elena didn't hear a word. She was too focused on breathing, on staying upright, on not running. Adrian's hand found hers. His grip was steady, warm. "You look beautiful," he murmured. Elena said nothing. The vows started. She heard herself speaking as if from a distance. Words about love and honor and forever, all of them lies that everyone in this cathedral knew were lies. Adrian's vows were shorter, more honest. "I promise to protect you, to honor our agreement, to be worthy of the trust you're placing in me today." It wasn't romantic, it wasn't what anyone expected, but it was real. The rings came next. Adrian slid a wedding band onto her finger, platinum to match the engagement ring, embedded with small diamonds that caught the light. Elena took the ring meant for him, simpler, no stones, and slid it onto his finger with hands that only shook a little. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the priest said. "You may kiss the bride." Adrian's hand came up to cup her face, gentle. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Not because she wanted this, but because 500 people were watching and she was done fighting. His lips met hers. The kiss was soft, brief, nothing like what she'd expected. When he pulled back, his thumb brushed her cheekbone. "We're going to be okay," he whispered. Then he turned her toward the crowd, his hand on her lower back, and they walked down the aisle together as husband and wife, while everyone applauded. Elena smiled for the cameras. She smiled through the receiving line, through the 1,000 congratulations from people she didn't know and didn't care about. She smiled through the ride to the reception venue, a country club Adrian had rented out entirely for the evening. She smiled until her face hurt. The reception was a blur, food she didn't eat, champagne she drank too much of, dancing with Adrian while a live band played and everyone watched them like they were a show. "You're doing well," Adrian said, his hand on her waist as they moved through a waltz. "I'm very good at pretending," Elena replied. "I'm aware. Are you happy? Now that you've gotten what you wanted?" Adrian's expression flickered. Something that might have been regret, might have been something else. "Ask me again in a year." "Will I still be here in a year?" "That depends on you." The song ended. People applauded. Elena wanted to disappear. More dancing followed. More speeches. Marcus gave a toast that was charming and slightly inappropriate. Michael gave one that was sweet and earnest and made Elena want to cry. Through it all, Adrian stayed close, his presence constant and suffocating. Finally, it was over. Lydia appeared with a coat for Elena, whispering that the car was ready. Elena hugged Michael goodbye, promised to call him tomorrow, and let Adrian lead her outside. The Mercedes was waiting. As they drove away from the country club, Elena watched the lights fade in the rearview mirror. "We need to stop," she said suddenly. "What?" "Stop the car, I'm going to be sick." Adrian told the driver to pull over. Elena got out before the car fully stopped, stumbled to the side of the road, and threw up champagne and wedding cake into the grass. She heard Adrian get out, heard his footsteps behind her. He didn't touch her, just stood there while she emptied her stomach of everything she'd forced down that day. When she was done, he handed her a handkerchief. "Better?" he asked. "No." "Fair enough." They got back in the car. Elena leaned against the window, watching the city pass by. They were heading away from everything familiar, toward Adrian's estate and the life she'd just signed away. "I hate you," she said quietly. "I know. I'll always hate you." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then, maybe you'll understand eventually that I'm not your enemy. You forced me into marriage. What else would you call yourself? Someone who gave you the best option in a situation with no good options." Elena closed her eyes. "Take me to your house. Show me my cage. Let's get this over with." The rest of the drive passed in silence. When they arrived at the estate, Lydia was waiting. She led Elena upstairs to what Adrian had called her suite. It wasn't a cage. It was beautiful. Bedroom with a king bed and soft lighting, sitting room with a fireplace and bookshelves, bathroom with a tub big enough to drown in. "Everything you might need is here," Lydia said. "If you require anything else, just call." "Where's Adrian?" "His rooms are in the east wing. Yours are in the west. You won't see him unless you want to." Elena nodded. Lydia left, closing the door softly behind her. Alone, finally, Elena sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her hands. The rings glinted in the lamplight, proof that today had actually happened, that she was actually married to a man she barely knew and completely feared. She should sleep. She should take off this dress and wash off this makeup and try to rest. Instead, she walked to the window and looked out at the grounds. Lights illuminated the gardens, the pool, the walls that kept the world out and kept her in. Somewhere in this massive house was her husband. Somewhere nearby was the man who owned her now. Elena pressed her palm against the glass, felt the cool surface against her skin. She'd survived today. She'd gotten through the wedding, the reception, the start of this nightmare. Now she just had to survive everything that came next. The first morning in Adrian's house, Elena woke up disoriented. For 3 beautiful seconds, she didn't remember where she was or what had happened. Then she saw the unfamiliar ceiling, felt the weight of the rings on her finger, and everything came crashing back. She was married. She lived here now. This was real. The clock on the nightstand read 7:30. Sunlight filtered through curtains she didn't remember closing. Someone must have come in while she slept. The thought made her stomach turn. She sat up, still wearing the slip she'd changed into last night after finally managing to get out of the wedding dress. There was a soft knock at the door. "Miss Rowan?" Lydia's voice. "I have breakfast." Elena almost corrected her. It was Mrs. Voss now, wasn't it? But the words stuck in her throat. She pulled on a robe she found hanging in the closet and opened the door. Lydia wheeled in a cart laden with food. Coffee, fresh fruit, pastries, eggs prepared 3 different ways like Elena was supposed to have an appetite for any of it. Mr. Voss asked me to let you know he'll be in meetings all day, Lydia said, arranging items on the small table by the window. He said you should make yourself at home. Explore the house if you'd like. Is that an order or a suggestion? Lydia's expression remained neutral. I believe it was meant as a courtesy. Right, because he's so courteous. Elena sat at the table, picked up the coffee. Still exactly how she liked it. Does he have cameras in here? Is that how he knows everything? There are security cameras throughout the property, but not in the private suites. Mr. Voss values privacy. Just not mine, apparently. Lydia didn't respond to that. She finished setting up breakfast and moved toward the door. Wait, Elena said. How long have you worked for him? 12 years. Do you like him? Lydia paused, considering. Mr. Voss is fair, demanding, but fair. He's never asked me to do anything that compromised my principles. Lucky you. He's a complicated man, Miss Rowan, but he's not a bad one. Lydia met her eyes. I know this situation isn't what you wanted, but try to give it a chance. You might be surprised. After she left, Elena stared at the breakfast spread. She wasn't hungry, but she forced herself to eat some fruit. The alternative was sitting here feeling sorry for herself, and that felt too much like giving up. She showered in the enormous bathroom, using products that smelled expensive and unfamiliar. Her own things had been moved here yesterday. She found her toiletries arranged neatly in the vanity, her clothes hanging in a walk-in closet that was bigger than her old bedroom. Someone had unpacked everything, put it all away like this was normal, like she belonged here. Elena dressed in jeans and a sweater, then stood in the middle of her new bedroom trying to decide what to do. She could stay here all day, hide like a prisoner. Or she could do what Adrian suggested and explore this place that was supposed to be her home now. The thought of calling it home made her want to break something. She opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The house was quiet, just the distant hum of activity from somewhere below. Elena walked slowly, taking in details she'd missed last night. Original artwork on the walls, fresh flowers in alcoves. Everything curated, nothing random. She found the stairs and descended to the main floor. A woman in a housekeeper's uniform appeared from a side room, startled. Mrs. Voss, the woman said, recovering quickly. I'm Maria. Can I help you with something? I'm just looking around. Of course. If you need anything at all, just let me know. Maria gestured down a hallway. The kitchen is that way if you'd like more coffee. The library is through those doors. Mr. Voss's office is in the east wing, but he's not there right now. Elena nodded, feeling increasingly like an intruder in someone else's life. She chose the library at random, pushed open heavy double doors, and stopped. The room was enormous, 2 stories of floor-to-ceiling bookshelves connected by a spiral staircase, leather furniture arranged around a fireplace, windows overlooking the gardens. It was the kind of library people dreamed about, the kind Elena used to sketch in notebooks when she imagined her future. She walked to the nearest shelf, ran her fingers along book spines. Poetry, classic literature, modern fiction, an entire section on art history. One shelf held books about painting techniques, another about famous galleries. Elena pulled out a volume on Impressionism, flipped through pages of Monet reproductions. She remembered that day 6 years ago that Adrian had mentioned, standing in his gallery, lost in a painting, while he watched from above like some kind of voyeur. The memory made her skin crawl. She shoved the book back. That's one of my favorites. Elena spun around. Adrian stood in the doorway, still wearing a suit despite Lydia's claim he'd be in meetings all day. He looked tired, shadows under his eyes suggesting he'd slept as poorly as she had. I thought you were busy, Elena said. Meeting ended early. He walked into the library, hands in his pockets. Do you like the library? It's fine. Just fine? Something that might have been amusement crossed his face. I designed this room specifically thinking about that day in the gallery, the way you looked at art. I thought you'd want a space like this. You designed this room for me? When we weren't even married yet? I had hope. Adrian moved to the window, looked out at the grounds. Hope that eventually you might choose to be here instead of feeling trapped here. That's delusional. Maybe, but I'm an optimist in certain areas. He turned back to face her. I came to check on you. Make sure you had everything you needed. I need my freedom. Can you give me that? Within reason, yes. You're not a prisoner, Elena. You can go where you want. See your brother whenever you'd like. There are just some basic security protocols to follow. Security protocols, Elena repeated. You mean guards following me everywhere? I mean making sure you're safe. Like I said at the cathedral, I have enemies. Some of them will see you as a way to hurt me. Maybe I should let them. Adrian's expression hardened slightly. Don't joke about that. Who says I'm joking? He studied her for a long moment, then surprised her by sitting down in one of the leather chairs. Ask me anything you want. Whatever you need to know to make this easier. Elena hadn't expected that. She stayed standing, arms crossed defensively. Fine. What do you actually do? Marcus said you had enemies, but he wouldn't say why. I run several businesses, some legitimate, real estate, art galleries, import-export companies, some less so. Meaning what? Meaning I facilitate transactions between parties who can't use traditional banking systems. I move money. I move goods. I make problems disappear for people willing to pay premium rates. You're a criminal. I operate in gray areas, Adrian corrected. Everything I do has legal alternatives. I just provide faster, more discreet service. That's a sanitized way of saying you're a criminal. Call it what you want. It's the truth. He leaned back in the chair. Your father came to me 8 years ago. He needed capital to expand his shipping business. Banks wouldn't loan to him. Too much risk. I gave him $3 million at reasonable interest rates. In exchange, he agreed to move certain cargo for me. Nothing dangerous. Nothing that would hurt anyone. Just merchandise that needed to avoid certain customs inspections. Smuggling. Importing without excessive bureaucratic interference, Adrian said dryly. Your father was good at it, made a lot of money. Then he got greedy and started keeping some of that money for himself. I gave him chances to fix it. He didn't. He knew what would happen if he didn't pay what he owed. Elena's hands clenched into fists. You killed him. No. I was going to give him one more chance. I had a meeting scheduled with him the day he died. Adrian's voice was flat, emotionless. He drove off that bridge 3 hours before we were supposed to meet. Whether that was an accident or whether he couldn't face what was coming, I don't know. You expect me to believe you're innocent in this? I expect you to believe I'm telling the truth. There's a difference. Adrian stood, walked to one of the bookshelves. He pulled out a book. Not a real book, Elena realized, but a hollow container disguised as one. Inside were papers. He handed them to her. What is this? Proof. Meeting confirmations with your father, text messages, security footage from my office showing me waiting for him that day. Adrian's jaw was tight. I'm not a good man, Elena, but I didn't kill your father. He did that himself. Elena took the papers with shaking hands. Part of her wanted to throw them back at him, to refuse to look at anything that might complicate her hatred. But another part, the part that had loved her father despite his flaws, needed to know. She sat down and started reading. The evidence was exactly what Adrian claimed. Meeting confirmations, messages from her father saying he'd be there, he just needed a few more hours. Timestamps proving Adrian had waited until midnight before leaving. He was scared, Elena said quietly. Yes. He knew what he'd done, knew he couldn't fix it. Yes. And you were just going to let him explain, give him another chance? Adrian was quiet for a moment. I was going to offer him a way out, a payment plan, more time. Your father and I had history. I didn't want to end things the way they ended. Elena looked up at him. Why are you telling me this? Why show me any of this? Because I need you to understand that I'm not your enemy. I'm not the villain in this story. Your father made choices. Those choices had consequences. I'm trying to protect you from worse consequences. By forcing me to marry you. By giving you and your brother a future. By making sure the people your father screwed over don't come looking for revenge. Adrian moved closer, his expression intense. Do you know how many other families were affected by what your father did? How many people lost money because he was stealing? Some of those people wanted blood, wanted to make an example. I stopped that from happening. How generous of you. It's not generosity, it's self-interest. If I let them hurt you, I look weak. If I protect you by marrying you, I look strong and merciful. Everyone wins. Except me. I don't win anything. You're alive. Your brother is safe. You live in comfort. You have access to anything you want. Adrian's voice was hard now. A lot of people would consider that winning. Elena stood, threw the papers at him. They scattered across the floor. You don't get to tell me how to feel about this. You don't get to make this sound reasonable. I'm not trying to make it sound reasonable. I'm trying to make you see reality. Reality is that you bought me like property. Reality is that I'll never forgive you for that. Then don't forgive me. Adrian didn't move to pick up the papers. But at least try to make the best of this situation instead of fighting it every step of the way. Why? What's in it for you if I'm happy? Peace, stability, a wife who doesn't look like she wants to murder me every time we're in the same room. His mouth curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. Is that too much to ask? Yes, it is. Elena walked out before he could respond. She made it halfway down the hall before her vision blurred with tears, but she refused to let them fall. She wouldn't give him that satisfaction. She found her way back to her suite and locked the door. Then she lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling, trying to figure out how she was supposed to survive this. Hours passed. Elena dozed on and off, trapped in dreams that mixed memory with nightmare. Her father driving off a bridge while she screamed from the back seat. Adrian watching her in the art gallery, his face hidden in shadow. Michael crying, asking why she'd left him alone. She woke to darkness and the sound of rain against the windows. The clock read 9 p.m. She'd slept through the entire afternoon. There was a tray on the table. Someone had brought dinner while she slept. The food was cold now, but Elena ate it anyway, suddenly starving. After she finished, she sat by the window and watched rain stream down the glass. She should call Michael, should check on him, make sure he was okay. But the thought of pretending everything was fine exhausted her. Instead, she found herself thinking about the library, about all those books on art and painting, about Adrian saying he'd designed that room for her. It was sick, obsessive, the kind of thing that should terrify her. But a small part of her, a part she didn't want to acknowledge, was almost touched by it, by the idea that someone had paid that much attention, had cared enough to remember a moment from 6 years ago and build something around it. She shoved that thought away, disgusted with herself. Stockholm Syndrome, probably, or just exhaustion making her vulnerable. A knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Elena? Adrian's voice through the door. Can we talk? No. Please. I have something for you. I don't want anything from you. It's not from me. It's from your father. Elena's hand was on the doorknob before she could stop herself. She yanked the door open. Adrian stood there holding a box. Simple cardboard, nothing fancy. What is that? She demanded. Your father left this with me 6 months before he died. Said if anything happened to him, I should give it to you. Elena stared at the box like it might explode. You're lying. I'm not. I was going to give it to you at the wedding, but the timing felt wrong. Adrian held it out. It's yours. Whatever's inside, I haven't looked. She took the box with trembling hands. It was heavier than expected. Why would he leave something with you? Because he knew I'd make sure you got it. Whatever else happened between us, he trusted me with this. Elena wanted to throw the box at him, wanted to scream that her father would never trust the man who'd forced his daughter into marriage. But Adrian's expression was too sincere, too open, and the box had her name written on top in her father's handwriting. Thank you, she said quietly. Adrian nodded. I'll leave you alone. But Elena, whatever's in there, if you need to talk about it, I'm here. He left before she could respond. Elena carried the box to her bed, sat down with it in her lap. For a long time, she just stared at her father's handwriting. Then finally, she opened it. Inside was a letter, a flash drive, and a small leather journal. Elena picked up the letter with shaking hands. My dearest Elena, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and you've learned things about me that I never wanted you to know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for lying to you. I'm sorry for the choices I made. I'm sorry for leaving you to deal with the consequences of my failures. I was a coward. When the debts got too big and the pressure got too much, I took the easy way out instead of facing what I'd done. I knew Adrian would take care of you. He's a better man than you probably think right now. I know you'll hate me for arranging this marriage, but it was the only way I could think to protect you and Michael. The journal contains the truth about our family. The real truth, not the sanitized version I told you growing up. You have a right to know where you come from, even if it's ugly. The flash drive has account information. Money I set aside for you and Michael. Clean money, nothing illegal. It's not much, maybe 200,000 total, but it's yours. Adrian knows about it. He promised not to touch it. I love you, Elena. I loved you from the moment you were born. I'm sorry I wasn't the father you deserved. Dad. Elena read the letter 3 times before setting it down. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She picked up the journal, opened to the first page. Her father's handwriting filled the margins, cramped and rushed. The Rowan family history didn't start with respectability like we pretend. It started with my grandfather running guns during Prohibition. Built his fortune on blood and smuggling. Every generation since has tried to clean it up, make it legitimate, but the dirt doesn't wash off that easy. I thought I could be different, thought I could be the one who finally made us respectable. Instead, I became exactly what he was, just better at hiding it. Elena kept reading, page after page of confessions, her grandfather's crimes, her father's first illegal deal, the network of corruption that stretched back decades. Every lie she'd been told about her family's history, exposed in brutal detail. By the time she finished, dawn was breaking outside her windows. Elena felt hollowed out, scraped clean of every illusion she'd ever had about who she was and where she came from. She thought about her father driving off that bridge, about whether it was an accident or a choice, about him being high on painkillers, drowning in debts and lies. She thought about Adrian waiting for a meeting that never happened, about him deciding to marry her instead of letting her father's other enemies destroy what was left of the family. None of it made this okay. None of it erased the fact that she'd been forced into this marriage. But it complicated things, made her hatred less clean, less simple. She picked up her phone and sent a text to Michael. Love you. Have a good day at school. Then she plugged in the flash drive and opened the files her father had left. Bank account numbers, investment portfolios. Instructions for accessing everything. He'd been telling the truth. $217,000, all in legitimate accounts. Money for her and Michael's futures. Elena closed her laptop and lay back on the bed, exhausted but unable to sleep. Outside, she could hear the estate waking up, staff arriving, the distant sound of cars. Normal morning sounds in a life that was anything but normal. There was a knock. Lydia, probably with breakfast. Come in, Elena called, but it wasn't Lydia. Adrian stepped inside, still dressed in what looked like yesterday's clothes. He looked even more exhausted than he had in the library, like he hadn't slept at all. I saw your light on all night, he said. Are you okay? I read everything. And? Elena sat up, met his eyes. And I don't know what to think anymore. Adrian moved closer, cautious. Your father was a complicated man, loved you more than anything but made terrible choices. Did you know? About my family's history? About his grandfather? Some of it, not all. Your father didn't talk much about the past. Why didn't you tell me? Because it wasn't my story to tell, and because I wanted you to hear it from him, even if it had to be through a letter. Adrian sat on the edge of the bed, keeping distance between them. I know this doesn't change how you feel about me, about this marriage, but maybe it helps you understand why I did what I did. It doesn't make it right. No, but it makes sense. Elena looked at this man she'd married, really looked at him, saw the exhaustion, the tension, the weight he carried, saw past the expensive suits and cold authority to something more human underneath. I still hate this, she said. I still hate that you took away my choice. I know. But I don't think I hate you, not completely. Not anymore. Adrian's expression shifted, something that might have been relief, might have been hope. That's a start. Don't get used to it. I might change my mind tomorrow. Fair enough. He stood, headed for the door. There's something I need to show you later, when you're ready. Something I think you'll want to see. What is it? A surprise. Not a bad one, I promise. He paused at the threshold. Get some rest, Elena. You look like you need it. After he left, Elena lay back down. She expected to stay awake, trapped in thoughts about her father and family history and the strange man she'd married. But exhaustion finally won. She fell asleep with her father's journal clutched against her chest, rain still falling outside. She dreamed about the art gallery again, But this time, when she looked up at the second floor, Adrian smiled at her. And this time, she didn't look away. When she woke hours later, someone had covered her with a blanket and left fresh coffee on the nightstand. The journal was on the table, placed carefully like something precious. Elena sat up, drank the coffee, and thought about Adrian saying he had something to show her. Part of her wanted to refuse out of spite, but a larger part was curious. She showered and dressed, then went looking for him. Found him in his office in the East Wing, a room she hadn't seen before. He was on the phone, speaking in clipped tones to someone who was clearly disappointing him. When he saw her in the doorway, he ended the call. "You came," he said. "You said you had something to show me." "I do." Adrian stood, gestured for her to follow. "Come with me." He led her through hallways she hadn't explored yet, to a part of the house that seemed separate from the rest. He stopped at a door that required a key code to open. "What is this?" Elena asked. "Something I've been working on for a while." Adrian punched in the code. The door clicked open. "After you." Elena stepped inside and froze. It was an art studio. A massive, light-filled space with floor-to-ceiling windows, easels set up in perfect positions, canvases stacked against walls, paints and brushes organized by color and type. Everything an artist could possibly need. "I don't understand," she said. "You used to paint. Before your father died, before everything fell apart. You were good." Adrian walked to one of the easels, adjusted its height. "I thought you might want to start again." "How did you know I painted?" "I told you, I know a lot about you." He turned to face her. "This is your space. No one else comes in here unless you invite them. You can paint whatever you want, whenever you want. It's yours." Elena walked slowly through the studio, touching surfaces, examining supplies. Everything was top quality. Everything was perfect. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do this?" "Because you looked happy when you painted. I've seen photos. Michael sent me some when I asked about your hobbies. You looked free." Adrian's voice was quiet. "I can't give you the life you wanted. Can't give you a choice about being here. But maybe I can give you moments where you feel like yourself again." Elena's throat tightened. She wanted to stay angry, to reject this obvious attempt to manipulate her. But standing in this beautiful space, surrounded by art supplies she dreamed about owning, she couldn't find the anger. "This doesn't make us even," she said. "I'm not trying to make us even. I'm trying to make this bearable for you." "Why do you care if it's bearable?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, less controlled, more raw. "Because I've been watching you be miserable since the wedding, and it's harder than I thought it would be." "Good. You should feel guilty." "I do. Every day." He moved toward the door. "The studio is yours. Use it or don't, but it's here if you want it." He left before she could respond. Elena stood alone in the studio, surrounded by light and possibility, and the strange, confusing realization that maybe Adrian Voss was more complicated than she'd thought. She picked up a brush, felt its weight in her hand. It had been almost a year since she'd painted, since before her father's death, when she'd still believed in futures and happiness and art for art's sake. She set up a canvas on the easel, selected paints almost on autopilot. Then she started painting without thinking, letting her hands move on instinct. Hours passed. The sun shifted across the windows. Elena painted through lunch, through afternoon, into early evening. She painted her father's face from memory, painted him young and hopeful, the way he'd looked in old photos before everything went wrong. She was so focused she didn't hear the door open, didn't realize anyone was there until Adrian spoke. "It's beautiful," he said softly. Elena turned, brush still in hand. "I'm not done." "I can see that." He moved closer, studying the canvas. "He looks happy there, peaceful." He wasn't. Not really. But I like remembering him that way. We all deserve to be remembered better than we actually were. Elena set down her brush, wiped paint-stained hands on the smock she'd found hanging nearby. "Thank you for this, for the studio." "You don't have to thank me." "I do, though, because it's the first thing that's made me feel human since the wedding." She met his eyes. "I still don't forgive you. I'm still angry, but this helps." Adrian nodded. "That's all I was hoping for." They stood there in comfortable silence, surrounded by paint fumes and afternoon light. Elena realized this was the first time she'd been alone with him and not felt the urge to run or fight. The first time his presence felt almost peaceful instead of threatening. "I should let you work," Adrian said finally. "But there's a dinner tonight, business associates I need to meet with. I'd like you there if you're willing." "Is that a request or an order?" "A request, but one I'm really hoping you'll say yes to." Elena considered refusing, but standing here in this studio he'd built for her, wearing her father's paint-stained smock, she found she didn't have it in her. "What time?" she asked. 7, formal dress. I'll have Lydia help you choose something appropriate." "I can choose my own clothes." "I know you can, but these people are particular. Image matters to them." "Fine, I'll be ready at 7. Adrian smiled a real smile, not the controlled expressions he usually wore. "Thank you." After he left, Elena turned back to her painting. She added shadows to her father's face, depth to his eyes, made him look more real, more flawed, more human. Outside the windows, the sun was setting over the estate grounds. Elena watched the light change the way it always did, constant and reliable, even when everything else was falling apart. She'd survived 2 days in this house, 2 days of being Adrian Voss's wife. It felt like a lifetime and no time at all. She cleaned her brushes carefully, then headed back to her suite to prepare for dinner with people she didn't know, playing a role she'd never asked for. But as she walked through the quiet hallways, Elena realized something had shifted. The walls didn't feel quite as much like a prison anymore. The silence didn't feel quite as suffocating. Maybe that was dangerous. Maybe she was already being pulled into Adrian's orbit, already forgetting why she should hate him. Or maybe, just maybe, she was learning to survive in a world that didn't care what she wanted, only what she was willing to become. The dress Lydia helped her choose was deep emerald green, cut to suggest elegance without screaming for attention. Elena stood in front of the mirror at 6:50, barely recognizing herself. The woman staring back looked polished, composed, like someone who belonged at Adrian Voss's side instead of someone who'd been forced there. "You look perfect," Lydia said, fastening a diamond bracelet around Elena's wrist. "I look like someone else. Sometimes that's what survival requires." Lydia stepped back, examining her work. "The men at this dinner are dangerous, Mrs. Voss. They'll be watching you, trying to find weaknesses. Don't give them any." Elena met her eyes in the mirror. "What do you mean, dangerous?" "I mean, they're worse than Mr. Voss in ways that matter. He has lines he won't cross." "They don't." Lydia's expression was carefully neutral. "Stay close to him tonight. Let him do the talking. And whatever you do, don't wander off alone." Before Elena could ask what that meant, there was a knock. Adrian entered without waiting for permission, then stopped when he saw her. "You look beautiful," he said quietly. "Lydia's work, not mine." "I doubt that." He was wearing a black suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, his hair styled back in a way that made him look even more severe than usual. He held out his hand. "Ready?" Elena took it because she had to. His grip was warm, steady. They walked downstairs together, her heels clicking against marble floors. The dining room had been transformed. Crystal chandeliers threw light across a table set for 12. Flowers Elena didn't recognize created centerpieces that probably cost hundreds each. Everything screamed wealth and power. 3 men were already there, drinks in hand, talking in low voices that stopped when Elena and Adrian entered. "Gentlemen," Adrian said smoothly, "I'd like you to meet my wife, Elena." The first man who approached was in his 60s, silver-haired with eyes that took in everything. "Mrs. Voss, a pleasure. I'm Richard Castellano." Elena shook his hand, smiled the way she'd been taught. "Nice to meet you. Your father and I did business years ago, before things went sideways." Castellano's grip lingered too long. "You have his eyes." "So I've been told." The second man was younger, maybe 40, with the build of someone who spent serious time in the gym. "Viktor Kozlov," he said, his accent faintly Russian. "Adrian's told us nothing about you. Very mysterious." "There's not much to tell." "I doubt that." Kozlov's smile didn't reach his eyes. Beautiful women always have interesting stories. The third man hung back, watching. He was tall, thin, with glasses that made him look more like an accountant than whatever he actually was. When Adrian gestured him forward, he approached reluctantly. "This is James Chen," Adrian said. He handles financial consulting for several of my ventures. Chen's handshake was brief, professional. Mrs. Voss? More guests arrived over the next 15 minutes. Elena smiled and shook hands and tried to remember names that blurred together. Marcus appeared at some point, winked at her like they shared a secret. A woman named Sophia, who looked like a model but spoke like a lawyer. Two more men whose names Elena forgot immediately. By the time they sat down to dinner, Elena's face hurt from fake smiling. Adrian pulled out her chair, leaned close as she sat. "You're doing great," he murmured. "I'm dying inside." "Only another 2 hours. You can manage." Dinner was elaborate. Course after course of food Elena barely tasted. The conversation flowed around her, business talk disguised as casual chat. Shipping routes and import regulations and currency fluctuations. Elena understood enough to know they were discussing things that were probably illegal, just phrased carefully enough to sound legitimate. "So Elena," Castellano said during the third course, "what do you think of married life?" Every eye at the table turned to her. Elena felt Adrian tense slightly beside her. "It's an adjustment," she said carefully. "I bet. Adrian's not the easiest man to live with." Castellano cut his steak with precise movements. "Very particular about how things should be done." "I'm learning." "Are you?" Kozlov leaned forward. "What have you learned so far?" It was a test. Elena could feel it, the way she could feel Adrian's warning hand on her knee under the table. "I've learned that my husband values loyalty and discretion," she said, "and that he keeps his promises." "Does he now?" Kozlov's smile was sharp. "That's good to know. Some of us have been wondering if Adrian's gotten soft. Marriage can do that to a man." "I'm still sitting right here, Victor," Adrian said mildly. "I know. That's why I said it." Kozlov raised his glass. "To the happy couple. May your marriage be long and prosperous." Everyone drank. Elena forced down wine that tasted like metal. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of careful conversation and subtle power plays. Elena watched Adrian navigate it all with practiced ease, never quite answering direct questions, always deflecting with charm or vague statements that sounded like agreements, but committed to nothing. Finally, dessert ended and people started moving to the sitting room for drinks. Elena stood, grateful to escape the table when Sophia appeared at her elbow. "Walk with me," the woman said quietly. "I need air." Elena glanced at Adrian, who was deep in conversation with Castellano. Before she could decide, Sophia linked their arms and steered her toward the terrace doors. Outside, the night was cool and clear. Sophia pulled out a cigarette, offered one to Elena. "I don't smoke. Smart girl." Sophia lit up, exhaled slowly. "You handled yourself well in there." "Did I?" "Better than most. Castellano tried to rattle you with the comment about your father. Kozlov tried to make you seem weak. You didn't take the bait either time." Elena leaned against the railing, looking out at the dark gardens. "Who are these people really?" "Monsters, mostly." Sophia's voice was matter-of-fact. "Castellano runs the East Coast drug trade. Kozlov handles weapons trafficking. Chen launders money for half the crime families in the country. And Marcus, well, Marcus does whatever Adrian tells him to do." "And you?" "I'm a lawyer who represents people who can't have their names on public documents." Sophia tapped ash over the railing. "I'm also the only woman Adrian trusts in these situations. That should tell you something." "What should it tell me?" "That he's not stupid enough to underestimate women just because the other idiots do." Sophia turned to face her. "Can I give you some advice?" "Can I stop you?" "No. Here it is anyway. Whatever you think about Adrian, whatever he did to get you here, he's keeping you alive. The men in that room would eat you alive if they thought you were vulnerable. They're watching to see if Adrian's weak enough to be manipulated through you." "I'm not trying to manipulate anyone." "I know. But they don't know that yet. They're going to test you, test him through you. Things might get ugly before they get better." Sophia finished her cigarette, ground it out carefully. "Stay smart, stay close to Adrian. And if anyone tries anything inappropriate, don't hesitate to make a scene. Adrian will back you up." "How do you know?" "Because I've seen him put a man in the hospital for disrespecting a waitress. Imagine what he'd do if someone touched his wife without permission." Before Elena could respond, the terrace doors opened. Adrian stood there, his expression unreadable. "Am I interrupting?" he asked. Just giving your bride some friendly advice, Sophia said lightly. Girl talk. You wouldn't understand. I'm sure. Adrian held out his hand to Elena. Victor wants to discuss the shipping routes. I need you there. It wasn't a request. Elena took his hand, let him lead her back inside. As they walked, he leaned close. What did Sophia tell you? That everyone here is dangerous and I should stay close to you. She's not wrong. Adrian's hand tightened on hers. This next part is important. Kozlov's going to try to put you on the spot. Don't answer any direct questions about our marriage or my business. If you don't know what to say, just look at me. They entered a study where Kozlov was waiting with Marcus and Chen. The atmosphere was immediately different, less formal, more tense. There she is, Kozlov said. The woman who tamed Adrian Voss. I haven't tamed anyone, Elena said. No? Then what would you call this arrangement? Kozlov gestured between her and Adrian. You marry him weeks after your father dies. Very convenient timing. Victor, Adrian said, his voice dropping into something dangerous. Watch yourself. I'm just curious. We all are. Kozlov circled them slowly. Your father owed Adrian millions. Now you're married. That's quite a debt payment. Elena felt her face flush. My marriage isn't your business. Actually, it is. Because if Adrian's making emotional decisions instead of logical ones, that affects all of us. Kozlov stopped in front of Adrian. You're soft, my friend. Everyone can see it. This girl has you twisted up. This girl is my wife. Show some respect. Or what? You'll defend her honor? Kozlov laughed. You're proving my point. Adrian moved so fast, Elena barely saw it. 1 second he was standing beside her, the next he had Kozlov against the wall, forearm across the other man's throat. Let me make something very clear, Adrian said quietly. My personal life doesn't affect my business decisions. But if you disrespect Elena again, I will make it my business to destroy everything you've built. Are we understood? Kozlov's face was red, but he managed to nod. Adrian released him, stepped back. Good. Now let's discuss those shipping routes like civilized people. The meeting continued like nothing had happened, but Elena couldn't focus. She watched Adrian negotiate terms and make deals, his voice calm like he hadn't just threatened a man's life. Watched the way the others deferred to him despite Kozlov's earlier challenge. Whatever else Adrian was, he commanded respect. And fear. Probably more fear than respect. When the meeting finally ended and guests started leaving, Elena felt exhausted down to her bones. She stood by Adrian's side as they said goodbyes, smiled through more meaningless pleasantries, counted down the minutes until she could escape upstairs. Finally, the last car pulled away. The house fell quiet except for staff cleaning up. You did well tonight, Adrian said, loosening his tie. I hated every second of it. I know, but you didn't show it. That's what matters. He started toward his wing of the house, then paused. Thank you for being there, for backing me up with Kozlov. I didn't do anything. You didn't flinch when he challenged me. That was enough. Adrian looked tired suddenly, the careful control slipping. These dinners are necessary but exhausting. I'm sorry you had to be part of it. Are they always like that? Usually worse. Tonight was actually pretty tame. Elena couldn't imagine worse. She was about to say goodnight when her phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Can I come visit this weekend? Want to see your new place? She showed Adrian the message. Is that okay? Of course, this is your home. Your brother is welcome anytime. He pulled out his own phone, typed something. I'll have the guest suite prepared, and I'll make sure I'm scarce. Give you two some privacy. You don't have to do that. I do if you want him to feel comfortable here. Adrian pocketed his phone. I know you don't want him to know the truth about why we married. I'll play the part of the devoted husband, make it believable. Why? Because protecting Michael from the ugly truth is the one thing we both want. Adrian moved toward the stairs. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be easier. Elena watched him go, then climbed the stairs to her own suite. Inside, she kicked off the heels that had been torturing her all night and collapsed on the bed. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Sophia. You survived your first dinner. Most new wives don't handle it that well. Proud of you. Elena stared at the message, unsure how to respond. Finally, she typed, Thanks for the warning, anytime. And Elena, Adrian's not as bad as you think he is. Give him a chance. Elena didn't answer that. She set her phone aside and stared at the ceiling, replaying the night. The way Adrian had defended her. The way he'd threatened Kozlov without hesitation. The way he'd offered to disappear when Michael visited so she could have time with her brother. She thought about Sophia's words, about giving him a chance. Part of her wanted to refuse on principle, but another part, growing larger each day, was starting to wonder if maybe Adrian wasn't the complete monster she'd wanted him to be. The weekend arrived faster than Elena expected. She spent Friday morning nervous, cleaning her suite even though staff did that daily. She changed clothes 3 times before settling on jeans and a sweater that looked casual, but not too casual. Adrian found her rearranging books in her sitting room. "He's your brother," Adrian said from the doorway. "Not a foreign dignitary. You can relax." "Easy for you to say." "Is it?" Adrian leaned against the doorframe. "I'm about to spend the weekend being scrutinized by a 16-year-old who's probably looking for reasons to hate me. I'm terrified." Elena almost smiled. "You threatened a weapons trafficker 2 days ago without breaking a sweat. Kozlov is predictable. Teenage boys are mysteries." Adrian checked his watch. "He should be here in 20 minutes. I'll keep things light. Let you two catch up. If you need me to disappear completely, just say the word." "No, it's fine. He wants to meet you properly anyway. See where I live." "Then I'll be on my best behavior." When Michael arrived, Elena was waiting by the front door. He got out of the car, driven by one of Adrian's security team, and his eyes went wide taking in the estate. "Holy shit," he breathed. "Language," Elena said automatically, then laughed and pulled him into a hug. "This place is insane," Michael said, hugging her back. "You live here now?" "Apparently." "And you married Adrian Voss." "Adrian Voss." Michael pulled back, grinning. "Do you know how jealous the guys at school are? Their dads do business with him. They think he's like Batman or something." "He's not Batman." "I mean, we don't know that for sure." Elena rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. Having Michael here made everything feel more normal, less like a prison sentence and more like just a new house. Adrian appeared then, walking across the foyer with his hands in his pockets. He dressed down, jeans and a button-down instead of his usual suits. It made him look younger, more approachable. "Michael," he said, extending a hand. "Good to see you again." "Mr. Voss?" Michael shook his hand, trying to look mature. "It's Adrian. We're family now." He glanced at Elena. "I thought I'd give you two the tour. Unless you'd prefer privacy?" "Tour would be great," Michael said before Elena could answer. Adrian showed them through the house, pointing out rooms and explaining the architecture. Elena had to admit he was good at this, engaging without being overbearing, asking Michael questions about school and lacrosse, making her brother feel important. When they got to the library, Michael stopped dead. "This is unreal," he said, staring at the 2 stories of books. "This is like something from a movie." "Your sister spends a lot of time here," Adrian said. "Feel free to borrow anything you want." "Really?" "Really. Elena's family is my family. That includes my books." They continued to the pool, the gardens, the game room Adrian had apparently built specifically for entertaining. Michael was like a kid in a candy store, excited about everything. "Can I see the garage?" he asked. "I heard you collect cars." Adrian smiled. "Sure, fair warning, your sister finds my hobby ridiculous." "Because it is," Elena said. "Nobody needs 8 cars." 7 cars, and I use them all regularly." The garage was predictably impressive, vintage Porsches next to modern Ferraris, each one maintained to perfection. Michael walked around them reverently, while Adrian explained engine specs and restoration details. Elena watched her husband interact with her brother and felt something uncomfortable twist in her chest. This was the version of Adrian the world didn't see. Patient, generous, almost kind. It was harder to hate him when he was making Michael light up talking about cars. They had lunch on the terrace, burgers and fries that Adrian had specifically requested because Michael had mentioned liking them. The conversation flowed easily, Michael telling stories about school and his girlfriend Sarah, Adrian listening like he actually cared. "Sarah wants to meet you," Michael said to Elena. "She's nervous because she thinks you're intimidating." "Why would she think that?" "Because you're smart and pretty, and you married a guy like Adrian. She thinks you're out of her league." "Nobody's out of anybody's league," Elena said. "Tell her I'd love to meet her. Maybe next weekend?" Yeah, that'd be great. Michael glanced at Adrian. Is that okay if she comes here? Of course. Bring her for dinner. We'll keep it casual. After lunch, Adrian excused himself, claiming he had work to catch up on. Elena suspected he was just giving her and Michael time alone, which she appreciated despite herself. They walked through the gardens, Michael asking questions about married life that Elena deflected as gracefully as possible. Are you happy? He asked finally. The question caught her off guard. What? Are you happy here? With Adrian? You seem different. Different how? I don't know. Less sad, maybe. You've been so sad since Dad died. Michael kicked at a pebble on the path. I was worried about you, but you seem better now. Elena's throat tightened. She'd been so focused on her own misery she hadn't realized Michael had been watching, worrying. I'm okay, she said. Still figuring things out, but I'm okay. Adrian seems really into you. What makes you say that? The way he looks at you, like you're the only person in the room. Michael grinned. It's kind of gross, actually, but also kind of sweet. Elena didn't know how to respond to that. She changed the subject, asking about his lacrosse season, and they spent the rest of the afternoon talking about normal things. When it was time for Michael to leave, he hugged her tight. I'm glad you're here, he said. Glad you found someone who takes care of you. Michael, I know it's fast, I know it's weird, but Adrian's a good guy. I can tell. He pulled back, smiled. And this house is awesome. Can I come back next weekend? Anytime you want. After he left, Elena stood in the foyer feeling strangely empty. Having Michael here had made everything feel temporary, like she was just visiting this life instead of living it. Now he was gone, and she was stuck with reality again. She found Adrian in his office, reading something on his computer. He looked up when she entered. He get off okay? Yeah, he wants to come back next weekend with his girlfriend. That's fine. I'll have Maria plan something age-appropriate. Adrian leaned back in his chair. He's a good kid. You did well with him. I didn't do anything. He's just naturally good. You raised him after your father died. That counts for something. Adrian's expression was thoughtful. He thinks I'm good for you. He's 16. What does he know? Maybe more than you think. Adrian stood, walked to the window. Can I ask you something? I guess. When you look at me now, what do you see? Elena considered lying, then decided against it. I see someone more complicated than I expected. Someone who scares me and confuses me in equal measure. But not just a monster anymore? Not just a monster, she admitted quietly. Adrian turned to face her. That's progress. Don't let it go to your head. Wouldn't dream of it. He moved toward the door, then paused. I have to go out tonight. Business meeting at the docks. Should be back late. The docks? That sounds dangerous. It's routine, just supervising a shipment. He grabbed a jacket from the coat rack. Marcus will be here if you need anything. I'll be fine. Adrian studied her for a moment, then nodded. Lock your doors anyway, just in case. After he left, Elena tried to settle into her evening routine. She painted for a while in the studio, but couldn't focus. Made dinner she didn't eat. Tried reading, but the words blurred together. Something felt wrong. She couldn't explain it, but the house felt too quiet, too empty. Around 11, her phone rang. An unknown number. Hello? Elena Voss? A woman's voice, urgent. Yes, who is this? My name is Detective Sarah Chen. I'm calling about your husband. There's been an incident at the waterfront. He's been shot. The phone slipped from Elena's hand. She caught it fumblingly, her whole body numb. What? Is he alive? He's at Mercy General Hospital. Critical but stable. You should come now. Elena was moving before she fully processed what she was doing. She grabbed her purse, her keys, ran downstairs to find Lydia. It's Adrian, she gasped out. He's been shot. I need to get to the hospital. Lydia's face went white. I'll drive you? The ride to the hospital was a blur. Elena couldn't think, couldn't breathe properly. She kept seeing Adrian's face, kept hearing him say he'd be back late, kept replaying their last conversation like she could change it somehow. She didn't realize until they pulled up to the emergency entrance that she was crying. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and fear. Elena's heels clicked against linoleum as she ran toward the emergency desk, Lydia struggling to keep up behind her. Adrian Voss, Elena gasped to the nurse. He was shot. They called me. Are you family? I'm his wife. The nurse's expression shifted slightly. He's in surgery. 3rd floor, surgical wing. Someone will update you when there's news. Elena didn't wait for more. She found the stairs and climbed, her legs shaking but refusing to slow down. The surgical waiting room was small, sterile, filled with uncomfortable chairs that looked like they'd been there since the 80s. Marcus was already there, pacing. His face was pale, a cut above his eyebrow still bleeding sluggishly. When he saw Elena, something like relief crossed his features. Thank God, he said. I didn't know if they'd reach you. What happened? Elena grabbed his arm. The detective said he was shot. It was supposed to be routine, just supervising a shipment at the docks. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, leaving it standing in messy spikes. We were checking manifests when the shooting started. Someone ambushed us. 4 gunmen, maybe 5. Adrian pushed me behind a container, took 3 bullets doing it. Elena's legs gave out. She sat heavily in the nearest chair. 3 bullets? Chest, shoulder, and 1 grazed his head. He was conscious when the ambulance came. Kept asking about you. Marcus sat beside her. He kept saying, "Tell Elena I'm sorry," over and over. Sorry for what? I don't know. He wasn't making complete sense. Marcus touched the cut on his forehead, winced. This should have been safe. We've done this drop 100 times. Someone knew we'd be there. Someone set us up. Before Elena could respond, a woman in a detective's badge approached. She was mid-40s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of face that had seen too much. Mrs. Voss, I'm Detective Sarah Chen. We spoke on the phone. Is he going to be okay? The doctors are optimistic, but I need to ask you some questions. Chen pulled out a notebook. Do you know of anyone who'd want to hurt your husband? Elena almost laughed. You want a list? That'll take a while. Start with the most likely. Victor Kozlov, Richard Castellano, pretty much everyone who was at our house for dinner 2 nights ago. Elena's hands were shaking. She clenched them together. My husband makes enemies professionally. It's kind of his thing. Chen wrote something down. What about your father, Thomas Rowan? The question caught Elena off guard. My father's dead. I know. But his business dealings might be relevant. Chen's expression was neutral, professional. Your father owed your husband significant money. Then he died. Then you married Adrian Voss very quickly. Some people might see a pattern there. What people? People who think maybe Adrian arranged your father's death. People who might want revenge for that. Chen watched Elena carefully. Did your husband kill your father, Mrs. Voss? No. Elena said it with more certainty than she felt. My father drove off a bridge. Accident or suicide, I don't know. But Adrian didn't kill him. You sound sure. I am. And Elena realized she was. Whatever else Adrian had done, whatever else he was guilty of, he hadn't killed her father. She believed that now in a way she hadn't a week ago. Chen made more notes. We'll need to talk to your husband when he's out of surgery. In the meantime, I'd suggest increased security. Whoever did this might try again. After Chen left, Elena sat in silence with Marcus. The minutes crawled by. Other people came and went, a woman with a crying baby, an old man waiting for news about his wife. A young couple holding hands like their grip on each other was all that kept them upright. Elena checked her phone obsessively. 12:30, 1 a.m., 1:15. You should call Michael, Marcus said quietly. Let him know what happened. And say what? Your new brother-in-law got shot because he's a criminal? That'll go over great. You could tell him there was an accident, that Adrian's in surgery but expected to be fine. Elena pulled out her phone, stared at Michael's contact. Then she put it away. I'll wait until morning, until I know something definite. No point scaring him before I have to. At 1:45, a surgeon in scrubs emerged. Elena was on her feet before she consciously decided to move. Mrs. Voss? Yes. Is he? He's alive. Surgery went well. We removed 2 bullets, repaired damage to his lung and shoulder. The head wound was superficial, mostly just bleeding. He's stable. Elena's knees went weak with relief. Can I see him? He's in recovery, sedated, but you can sit with him if you'd like. The surgeon led her through double doors, down a hallway that smelled stronger of antiseptic. Adrian's room was small, dimmed, full of machines that beeped softly. He looked smaller in the hospital bed, pale against white sheets. Bandages covered his chest and shoulder. An IV dripped clear fluid into his arm. Elena sat in the chair beside the bed and stared at him. She'd been so angry at this man, so determined to hate him. And now, looking at him unconscious and vulnerable, all she felt was terrified that he might not wake up. She reached out, hesitated, then took his hand. His fingers were cold. "You're an idiot," she whispered. "Getting yourself shot, scaring me like this." Adrian didn't respond. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. Elena sat there through the night, holding his hand, watching him breathe. At some point, Lydia brought coffee that Elena didn't drink. At another point, Marcus checked in, said he was going to the docks to investigate, told her to call if anything changed. Dawn broke gray and cold outside the window. Adrian's eyes opened around 6 a.m. He looked around slowly, taking in the room, the machines, Elena sitting beside him. His voice when he spoke was rough, barely audible. "You're here. Where else would I be?" "Home. Safe." He tried to sit up, winced, fell back. "Marcus?" "He's fine, cut on his head, but nothing serious." Elena squeezed his hand. "The surgeon said you pushed him out of the way, took bullets meant for him." "He's my oldest friend." "Of course I did." "You almost died." "But I didn't." Adrian's eyes focused on her more clearly. "You've been crying." Elena touched her face, surprised to find her cheeks still damp. "I was worried." "Why?" "Because—" She stopped, unsure how to finish that sentence. Because somewhere in the last 2 weeks, he'd stopped being just her captor and become something more complicated. Because seeing him in that hospital bed had made her realize she didn't actually want him dead. Because the thought of living in that big house without him had felt unbearably lonely. "Because you're my husband," she said finally, "and I don't want to be a widow at 26. Adrian's mouth curved slightly. "Practical as always." "Someone has to be." Elena stood, needing distance. "Detective Chen thinks someone set you up, that someone knew you'd be at the docks." "She's probably right. Who would do that? Long list. I'll narrow it down when my head stops pounding." Adrian closed his eyes. "You should go home. Get some rest. I'm not leaving." "Elena, I said I'm not leaving." She sat back down, crossed her arms. "So get used to it." Adrian opened his eyes again, studied her face. "You're stubborn." "You're just figuring that out now?" "No, but it's more pronounced when you're worried." His hand found hers again. "Thank you. For being here." "Don't thank me yet. I'm mostly here to yell at you once you're strong enough to handle it." "Looking forward to it." A nurse came in then, checked Adrian's vitals, adjusted his IV. She told Elena visiting hours were over. She'd have to leave. "I'm not going anywhere," Elena said. The nurse looked ready to argue, then saw something in Elena's expression that made her reconsider. "Fine. But if any doctors ask, you snuck in." After she left, Adrian squeezed Elena's hand weakly. "You're fierce when you want to be," he said. "Only when people I care about are involved." "Do you care about me?" Elena hesitated. A week ago, the answer would have been an immediate no. Now, looking at him pale and injured because he'd thrown himself in front of bullets for his friend, she wasn't sure anymore. "I don't want you dead," she said. "That's something." "It's a start." Adrian fell asleep again. Elena stayed in the chair, still holding his hand, and tried to make sense of the emotions churning through her. Fear, relief, anger at whoever had done this, and underneath it all, something that felt dangerously close to actual caring. She was still there when Marcus returned around 8 a.m. He looked exhausted, his clothes rumpled, the cut on his head now properly bandaged. "Found something," he said without preamble. "You need to see this. I'm not leaving him. He's asleep. He'll be fine for 20 minutes. Marcus's expression was grim. "Please, Elena. This is important." Elena looked at Adrian one more time, then followed Marcus into the hallway. He led her to a quiet corner, pulled out his phone, showed her a photo. It was a shipping manifest. Elena recognized the format from her father's office. "What am I looking at?" "The cargo we were supposed to receive last night. Medical supplies, according to the paperwork. But look at the signature at the bottom." Elena zoomed in. The signature was rushed, barely legible, but she recognized it anyway. It was her father's. That's impossible. This is dated 2 months ago. My father was already dead. I know. Marcus swiped to another photo. This is the actual cargo we found, not medical supplies. The photo showed wooden crates broken open, content spilling out. Money. Stacks and stacks of cash, bundled and marked with codes Elena didn't understand. $20 million, Marcus said. Hidden in a shipment your father supposedly arranged before he died. Except we both know he didn't arrange this. Someone's using his identity, using his old contacts. Who? That's what we need to figure out. Marcus put his phone away. Whoever set this up wanted Adrian to find this money. Wanted him at the docks. The shooting wasn't random, Elena. It was an execution attempt disguised as a robbery. Elena's mind was racing. You think someone's trying to frame my father? Make it look like he's still alive and stealing from Adrian? Or someone's trying to finish what your father started? Use his network, his reputation, to move money and goods without Adrian knowing. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. Either way, this is connected to your family, to your father's old business. I don't know anything about this. I swear, I believe you. But whoever's behind it might not care about that. Marcus's expression was serious. You could be in danger too. If they're willing to shoot Adrian, they might come after you to tie up loose ends. Elena thought about the house, the security, the way Adrian had insisted on guards. She thought it was controlling. Now she wondered if he'd known something she didn't. What do we do? We figure out who forged those documents, who had access to your father's old shipping routes and contacts. And we do it before they try again. Marcus glanced back toward Adrian's room. But first, you need to tell Adrian. He needs to know his wife's family is still causing problems from beyond the grave. Elena returned to Adrian's room. He was awake, talking to a doctor who was explaining recovery protocols. When he saw her face, he stopped mid-sentence. What happened? We need to talk. Alone. The doctor left. Elena showed Adrian the photos Marcus had sent to her phone, watched his expression harden as he took in the manifests, the signature, the crates of money. Your father's been dead 4 months, Adrian said flatly. I know. So someone's impersonating him, using his identity to move money through my shipping routes. Adrian's jaw was tight. Someone who knows enough about our arrangement to forge his signature convincingly. Who would know that much? Your father's old employees, his business partners, maybe even someone in your family. Adrian met her eyes. Did your father have a brother? Someone who might want revenge for his death? No, he was an only child. My grandparents are dead. There's no one. Elena thought about her father's journal, the family history of crime and lies. Unless someone from his old network decided to step up, use his reputation for their own gain. That's more likely. Adrian tried to sit up, grimaced. I need to see those manifests, original documents, not just photos. You need to rest. I need to stop whoever's trying to kill me and destroy my business. He pressed the call button for the nurse. Get me discharged. I'm leaving. You were shot 3 times yesterday, and I'll be shot again if I stay here defenseless. At least at home I have security. The nurse appeared and Adrian immediately started demanding his clothes, his phone, discharge papers. Elena watched him argue with medical staff and realized he was serious. He was actually going to check himself out of the hospital less than 12 hours after surgery. You're insane, she said. I'm practical. Big difference. Adrian swung his legs over the side of the bed, paused to catch his breath. Are you going to help me or just stand there judging? Judging, definitely judging. But Elena moved to his side anyway, let him lean on her as he stood. His weight was significant, his breathing labored. This is a terrible idea. Most of my ideas are terrible, hasn't stopped me yet. It took 20 minutes and multiple arguments with doctors before Adrian was discharged against medical advice. By the time they made it to the car, Marcus driving, Lydia in the passenger seat, Elena in back with Adrian, he was pale and sweating, but determined. The manifests are at the docks, Marcus said. Police have them as evidence. Then we get Detective Chen to share. Tell her it's connected to my father's old business. Adrian leaned his head back, eyes closed. Elena, I need you to think. Did your father have any partners you don't know about? Anyone he trusted with confidential information? I don't know. He kept me out of the business side, said it was too dangerous for me to be involved. Elena thought about the journal, the flash drive. Wait, there was someone, an accountant he used. Thomas mentioned him in the journal, said this guy knew everything about the financial side. Name? Vincent. Vincent something. I don't remember the last name. Adrian's eyes opened. Vincent Marks? Maybe? The name sounds familiar. Vincent Marks handled your father's books for 20 years. Disappeared right after your father died. We assumed he ran because he was afraid of being implicated. Adrian pulled out his phone, winced at the movement. What if he didn't run? What if he's been orchestrating this whole time? Marcus was already calling someone. I'll get people looking for him. If Marks is alive and in the city, we'll find him. They arrived back at the estate to find it transformed into a fortress. Additional security had been posted at every entrance. The gates were manned by armed guards. Even the gardens had patrols walking the perimeter. Bit much, don't you think? Elena asked. Not if someone's actively trying to kill me. Adrian let Marcus and Lydia help him inside. By the time they reached his bedroom, Elena noticed he went to his wing, not hers. He looked ready to collapse. You need to sleep, she said. I need to work. But even as he said it, he sat on the edge of the bed like his legs wouldn't hold him anymore. Elena crossed her arms. You're going to sleep. The manifests and Vincent Marks can wait a few hours. Your body can't. Bossy. Someone has to be. She pulled back the covers. In. Now. Adrian actually obeyed, which told her how much pain he was in. He lay back against the pillows, still fully dressed except for his shoes. Stay, he said quietly. What? Stay with me. Just until I fall asleep. I don't... He stopped, jaw tight. I don't want to be alone right now. Elena hesitated. This felt like crossing a line, like admitting something she wasn't ready to admit. But he looked so exhausted, so vulnerable, that she couldn't bring herself to leave. She sat on the edge of the bed. Adrian's hand found hers. Thank you, he murmured. For everything. For being at the hospital. For caring enough to yell at me. I haven't yelled at you yet. You will. I'm looking forward to it. His eyes closed. Within minutes, his breathing deepened into sleep. Elena sat there holding his hand, thinking about forged signatures and missing accountants and the mess her father had left behind. She thought about Adrian taking bullets for Marcus, about him checking himself out of the hospital because he was too stubborn to stay vulnerable, about the way he'd asked her to stay, like her presence actually mattered to him. Somewhere in the last 2 weeks, something had shifted. The man she'd married out of necessity had become someone she was starting to understand, maybe even starting to care about, though that felt like betrayal of everything she'd believed about him. She must have dozed off because when she woke, the sun was setting outside Adrian's windows. She was lying on the bed beside him, still on top of the covers, his hand still holding hers. Adrian was awake, watching her. How long have I been asleep? She asked. Couple hours. You looked peaceful. Didn't want to wake you. Elena sat up, suddenly self-conscious. I should go. Let you rest. Or you could stay. We could have dinner brought up, talk about what happens next. What does happen next? We find Vincent Marks. We figure out who's using your father's identity. We stop them before they try to kill me again. Adrian shifted carefully, wincing. And we do it together. Because like it or not, this involves both of us now. I don't know how to help with this. You know your father's business better than you think. You know his habits, his patterns. That matters. Adrian squeezed her hand. Plus, I trust you. Not many people I can say that about. You trust me? I've made it clear I hate being married to you. Hate and trust aren't mutually exclusive. You hate the situation. But you're honest about it. I know where I stand with you. Adrian's expression was serious. I'd rather have someone who hates me honestly than someone who pretends loyalty while plotting behind my back. Elena thought about that, about honesty and trust, and how strange it was that she felt both things toward this man who'd forced her into marriage. Okay, she said. I'll help, but on one condition. Name it. No more secrets. If this is about my family, I deserve to know everything, not just the pieces you think I can handle. Deal. Adrian held out his hand for her to shake, then laughed at himself. We're already holding hands. Makes the gesture less impressive. Elena found herself almost smiling. You're delirious from pain medication. Probably. Doesn't make it less true. A knock interrupted them. Marcus entered without waiting for permission, his face grim. "Found Vincent Marks," he said. "You're not going to like where he is." "Where?" "The old Rowan estate. The one Thomas supposedly sold 5 years ago. Turns out he never sold it. Just transferred ownership to a shell company. Vincent's been living there the whole time." Elena's stomach dropped. "That's impossible. I was at that house 6 months ago. It was empty. Top floors were empty. But the basement was renovated into a full apartment, complete with office, living quarters, and enough computer equipment to run a small country." Marcus held up his phone, showed them surveillance photos. "He's been there all along, right under our noses." The photos showed a man in his 60s, gray-haired and slight. Elena recognized him from old pictures in her father's office. Vincent Marks, her father's trusted accountant, the man who supposedly knew everything about Thomas Rowan's business dealings. "We need to talk to him," Adrian said. "Already tried. He won't answer the door, won't respond to phone calls." Marcus's expression was dark. "I think he's waiting for us to come to him. This is a trap. Then we spring the trap carefully." Adrian started to get up, immediately went pale. Elena pushed him back down. "You're not going anywhere. You can barely stand." "This is my business, my problem. It's my family's house, my father's accountant." Elena stood, made a decision that felt reckless and necessary. "I'll go talk to him. He knew me when I was a kid. Maybe he'll talk to me." "Absolutely not. You can't stop me." "Elena, you wanted us to work together, remember? Trust me to handle this." She looked at Marcus. "You'll come with me. Bring security. But I do the talking." Marcus looked between them, then shrugged. "Your call, boss." Adrian's jaw was tight, but he nodded slowly. "Take 6 men minimum, armed. First sign of trouble, you get out. I don't care about Vincent or answers or anything else. You get out safe. Understood?" "Understood." Elena left before he could change his mind or before she could second-guess herself. She changed quickly into jeans and a jacket, practical clothes for whatever was coming. Marcus was waiting downstairs with 4 security guards and Lydia, who absolutely refused to be left behind. The drive to her father's old estate took 30 minutes. The house looked exactly as Elena remembered. 3 stories of brick and ivy, windows dark, grounds overgrown. It had been beautiful once. Now it just looked abandoned and sad. "Basement entrance is around back," Marcus said, checking his gun. They walked as a group, security flanking them. The basement door was new, reinforced steel that didn't match the rest of the house. Marcus knocked. Nothing. He knocked again. "Vincent Marks. We know you're in there. We just want to talk." Still nothing. Elena stepped forward. "Mr. Marks, it's Elena Rowan. Please, I need to understand what my father was involved in." For a long moment, silence. Then the door opened. Vincent Marks stood there, looking older than his photos, wearier, but his eyes were sharp, assessing. "Elena," he said, "you look like your mother. She would have hated what Thomas became. Can we come in? Just you. No guards, no weapons." Marcus started to argue, but Elena held up a hand. "Fine, just me." "Elena, this is insane. Trust me." She looked at Marcus. "Give me 10 minutes. If I'm not out, come in shooting." She stepped inside before anyone could stop her. Vincent closed the door, locked it with multiple deadbolts. The basement apartment was exactly as Marcus had described, neat, organized, filled with computer equipment and filing cabinets. But what caught Elena's attention were the photographs covering one wall. Her father at different ages. Her mother dead before Elena turned 5. Pictures of Elena herself as a child, as a teenager, recent photos she didn't know existed. "You've been watching me," she said. "Watching over you. There's a difference." Vincent moved to a desk, gestured for her to sit. "Your father asked me to. Made me promise that if anything happened to him, I'd make sure you and Michael were protected. By forging his signature? By setting up Adrian Voss to be killed? I didn't set up anything. Those manifests are real. Your father created them before he died." Vincent pulled out a file, handed it to her. He knew he was running out of time, knew the debts were crushing him, so he arranged one final shipment. $20 million in cash he'd been skimming and hiding for years, money he wanted you and Michael to have. Elena opened the file. More manifests, more documents, all in her father's handwriting. He was going to tell Adrian about it. Make a deal. The money in exchange for canceling the debt and leaving you kids alone. Vincent's voice was heavy. But then he died before the meeting. I've been trying to execute his plan anyway. Get that money to you without Adrian knowing where it came from. So last night was supposed to be a simple pickup. Marcus would find the money, think it was part of a regular shipment, move it into Adrian's accounts. Then I'd have quietly transferred it to you over time. Vincent looked defeated. I didn't know someone else was watching, didn't know they'd use it as an opportunity to kill Adrian. Who? I don't know. But someone knew about the shipment. Someone wanted both the money and Adrian dead. Vincent pulled up security footage on one of his computers. Look, this is from the docks last night. The footage showed the waterfront, the shipping containers, Adrian and Marcus checking manifests. Then, movement. 4 men appearing from behind containers, weapons raised. But before they could fire, a 5th figure appeared, someone in dark clothes, face covered. This person fired first, not at Adrian, but at the 4 gunmen, created chaos and confusion while Adrian and Marcus dove for cover. Who is that? Elena asked. Someone who wanted Adrian alive. Someone who knew about the ambush and intervened. Vincent zoomed in, but the figure's face remained hidden. I've been going through your father's files trying to figure it out. There's only one person he trusted that much. Only one person who'd have reason to protect Adrian even after Thomas died. Who? Vincent pulled out one more file, opened it to reveal a birth certificate, legal documents, photos that made Elena's breath catch. Your father had a partner, someone he worked with for 30 years, someone who helped build his empire and knew every secret. Vincent's expression was grave. Someone you thought was dead. Elena stared at the documents, her mind refusing to process what she was seeing. The birth certificate showed a child born 45 years ago. Mother, Catherine Rowan. Father, unknown. The photos showed a man at different ages, sometimes with her father, both of them younger, smiling, sometimes alone, always in shadow. My mother died when I was 5, Elena whispered. Your mother died, but she had a son before she married your father. A son your father raised as his own. A son who officially died in a car accident 20 years ago. Vincent met her eyes. But that death was faked. He's been alive this whole time, working in the shadows, protecting the Rowan family interests, protecting you. Elena's hands were shaking. I don't have a brother. I would know. You were 3 when he supposedly died. Too young to remember properly. Your father erased him from family history to protect him. Gave him a new identity and sent him into deep cover. Vincent pointed to the most recent photo. The figure was older now, face partially obscured, but something about the build and posture was familiar. Too familiar. No, Elena said. That's impossible. But even as she said it, pieces were clicking into place. The way Adrian had known so much about her family. The way he'd defended her father despite the debts. The paintings of her from years ago. The obsessive attention to her life. Adrian Voss isn't his real name, Vincent said quietly. It's an alias he took 20 years ago. His birth name was Adrian Rowan. He's your half-brother Elena, and everything he's done, the marriage, the protection, all of it, has been to keep his promise to your father, to keep you safe no matter what it cost. The file slipped from Elena's hands, paper scattered across the floor, evidence of a truth that rewrote everything she thought she knew. Her husband wasn't just a mafia boss who'd forced her into marriage. He was family. He was the brother she'd never known existed, and every moment between them, every touch, every almost tender look, was suddenly wrong in ways that made her stomach turn. Elena stood on shaking legs, vision blurring. I need to leave, she said. Elena, wait. But she was already moving, unlocking the door, stumbling into the night where Marcus and the guards waited. She heard them asking questions but couldn't make sense of the words. All she could think was that she'd been living with her brother, sleeping in his house, holding his hand while he recovered from surgery, feeling things for him that sisters definitely shouldn't feel for brothers. She made it to the car before she threw up in the bushes. Marcus drove while Elena sat in the back seat trying to remember how to breathe. Lydia kept asking if she was okay, but the words sounded like they were coming from underwater. Elena clutched the file Vincent had given her, unable to let it go even though every page felt like poison. When they pulled up to the estate, she was out of the car before it fully stopped. She ran inside, past security, past staff who called after her with concern. She needed to see him, needed to hear him deny it, needed him to tell her Vincent was lying, and this was all some sick game. Adrian was still in his bedroom, sitting up now with his laptop despite the doctor's orders. He looked up when Elena burst through the door, and whatever he saw in her face made him go pale. "What happened?" he asked. Elena threw the file at him. Papers scattered across the bed, across his lap. Birth certificates and photographs and legal documents that proved everything Vincent had said. "Tell me it's not true," she said. Her voice was shaking. "Tell me Vincent Marks is insane and you're not... Adrian looked down at the documents. His expression didn't change, but his hands clenched into fists. "Where did you get these? Answer the question. Are you Adrian Rowan? Are you my father's son?" The silence stretched between them like broken glass. "Yes," Adrian said finally. Elena's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, her whole body trembling. "Oh my God! Oh my God!" "Elena, don't say my name like that. Don't say anything." She pressed her hands to her face, trying to hold herself together. "You married me. You married your own sister. Half-sister, and the marriage isn't legal. It can't be. I made sure of that." Elena's head snapped up. "What?" "The marriage certificate I filed was under Adrian Voss. That's not my legal name. It's an alias. The marriage technically doesn't exist in any legal system." Adrian's voice was carefully controlled. "I knew you'd find out eventually. I made sure that when you did, you'd have an out. A way to walk away clean. You planned this. All of this. I planned to protect you. That's all I've ever done." Adrian tried to stand, grimaced, stayed where he was. "Let me explain, please." "Explain what? That you've been lying to me from the beginning? That every single thing you told me was bullshit?" "Not everything. Most of it was true." Adrian gestured at the papers. "I am Thomas Rowan's son. Your mother, Catherine, had me before she married your father. My biological father was a man named Vincent. Yes, the same Vincent who just told you all this. He and Catherine had an affair. When she got pregnant, he disappeared. Your father married her anyway, raised me as his own." Elena tried to process this. "So Vincent Marks is your father?" "Biologically, yes. But Thomas was my real father in every way that mattered. He gave me his name, his business, his trust." Adrian's expression was pained. "When I was 25, we faked my death. There were people coming after the Rowan family, dangerous people who would have used me to get to Thomas. So we staged a car accident, gave me a new identity, sent me deep into the criminal underworld to build my own empire." "Why?" "To protect the family from the inside, to have someone with power and resources who could intervene when things got bad. I've been doing that for 20 years, watching over Thomas, over you and Michael, making sure no one could hurt you." Elena's mind was spinning. "The painting, you said you saw me at the gallery 6 years ago." "I did. I'd been watching over you your whole life, but that was the first time I really saw you as an adult. You were so lost in that Monet, so completely present. And I thought..." He stopped, jaw tight. "I thought that you deserved better than the life you had, better than a father who was drowning in debts and lies. I wanted to fix it." "So you decided to marry me?" "No, I decided to protect you when Thomas died. The marriage was his idea, not mine." Elena's blood went cold. "What?" 3 weeks before he drove off that bridge, Thomas called me, said the debts were crushing him, said he was going to tell you and Michael the truth about everything, about me, about the business, all of it. I begged him not to, told him it would destroy you." Adrian's voice was hollow. "We made a deal. If anything happened to him, I'd marry you. Make it look like a business arrangement, keep you safe, and never tell you the truth about who I was. He thought if you knew I was your brother, you'd refuse my help out of pride. He was right. I know. That's why I kept the secret. That's why I let you hate me." Adrian met her eyes. It was easier than the alternative. Elena wanted to scream, wanted to hit him, wanted to rewind time to before she knew any of this and live in the simple clarity of hating Adrian Voss, the Mafia Boss, instead of this complicated nightmare. "You should have told me," she said. "When? On our wedding day? After I forced you into marriage? You would have thought I was lying, trying to manipulate you." Adrian gestured at himself. at the bandages covering bullet wounds. I was going to tell you eventually, when things were safer, when you trusted me enough to believe it. I'm never going to trust you again. I know. Adrian's expression was resigned. I know I've lost that. But at least now you understand why I did what I did. Why I couldn't just let you and Michael face the consequences of Thomas's debts alone. Elena stood on shaking legs. She needed distance, needed air, needed anything but this room and this man who was her brother and her husband and a stranger all at once. I need time, she said. Take all the time you need. I'll have Lydia prepare a different suite. You don't have to see me or talk to me until you're ready. I might never be ready. Then I'll wait anyway. Elena left without another word. She found Lydia in the hallway. Clearly she'd been listening, and let the older woman guide her to a room on the opposite side of the house. Lydia helped her out of her jacket, brought her water she couldn't drink, sat with her while Elena stared at the wall and tried to make sense of anything. Did you know? Elena asked finally. About Adrian being your brother? Yes. I've known since I started working for him 12 years ago. And you didn't think I deserved to know? I thought you deserved to be safe. Everything else was secondary. Lydia's voice was gentle. He loves you, you know. Not romantically, he'd never cross that line, but he loves you the way family loves, desperately and protectively and without conditions. He married me. In name only, he never touched you inappropriately, never asked for anything beyond appearances. Lydia sat beside her on the bed. I know this is horrible. I know you feel betrayed, but try to see it from his perspective. He spent 20 years in the shadows, protecting a family that doesn't know he exists. The one time he steps into the light, it's to save you from worse men than him. There are no worse men than someone who lies about being your brother. You really believe that? After meeting Kozlov and Castellano? Lydia shook her head. Adrian's not perfect, but he's not evil either. He's just a man trying to keep a promise to his father. Elena didn't respond. She lay down, turned to face the wall, and tried to shut out the world. She must have slept because when she woke, it was morning. Her phone showed 17 missed calls from Michael. Panic shot through her. What if something had happened to him? She called back immediately. Michael answered on the first ring. Elena, finally! I've been trying to reach you all night. I'm sorry. I had my phone on silent. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I heard about Adrian getting shot. It's all over the news. Are you okay? Is he okay? Elena had forgotten that normal people watched news, that a mafia boss being shot at the docks would make headlines. He's fine, recovering at home. I'm fine too. You sure? You sound weird. Just tired. It's been a long couple of days. I can come over, keep you company. No. Elena said it too quickly, too sharply. I mean, I'm fine, really. Just need some rest. Come next weekend like we planned, okay? Michael was quiet for a moment. You'd tell me if something was really wrong, right? Elena thought about everything she couldn't tell him. About Adrian being their brother. About their father's criminal empire. About the web of lies and secrets that had shaped their entire lives. Of course I would, she lied. I love you, Michael. I'll call you later. After she hung up, Elena sat with her phone in her hands, thinking about lies and protection and how much truth any of them could actually handle. There was a knock. Marcus's voice. Elena, can I come in? She opened the door. Marcus looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept either. Adrian sent me to check on you, make sure you're okay. I'm not okay. I'm never going to be okay. Fair enough. Marcus leaned against the doorframe. For what it's worth, he's miserable too. Won't eat, won't rest, just sits there going through files trying to figure out who set up the ambush. Why are you telling me this? Because someone needs to. Because you're the only person he actually cares about. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. Look, I've known Adrian, or whatever his real name is, for 15 years. I've seen him do terrible things. I've seen him make ruthless decisions that destroyed people's lives. But I've never seen him lose sleep over any of it. Not until you. That's supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to make you understand that whatever else he is, whatever he's done, his feelings for you are real. Not romantic, Marcus added quickly, seeing Elena's expression, but real family love. The kind that makes you crazy and protective and willing to do stupid things. Like forcing me into marriage. Like taking 3 bullets meant for someone else. Like checking himself out of the hospital because he was worried you'd get hurt investigating without him. Marcus met her eyes. He's not asking for forgiveness. He knows he doesn't deserve it. But maybe you could try to see past your anger long enough to help him finish this. Figure out who's trying to destroy what's left of your family. Elena wanted to refuse, wanted to lock herself in this room and never come out. But Marcus was right. Someone was still out there, still dangerous, still using her father's name to move money and murder people. Fine, she said, but I'm doing this for my father's memory, not for Adrian. Whatever gets you there. She found Adrian in his study, exactly as Marcus had described. Papers were scattered across every surface. His laptop showed security footage, financial records, shipping manifests. He looked up when she entered, something like hope crossing his face before he shuttered it. I'm not here to forgive you, Elena said. I'm here because I need to know who killed my father. Your father died in an accident. Did he? Or was he murdered by whoever's been using his identity? Elena sat across from him. Vincent said my father, our father, was planning to make a deal with you. What if someone didn't want that deal to happen? Adrian leaned back carefully, mindful of his injuries. You think someone killed Thomas to keep him from clearing his debts? I think someone benefited from him dying. Someone who needed him out of the way but wanted to keep using his network and reputation. Elena pulled up the photos Vincent had given her. These shipping routes, these contacts. Someone's been using them for months. Moving money, moving goods. Someone who knew Thomas well enough to forge his signature. Vincent swears it wasn't him. I believe him. He loved our father. He wouldn't have betrayed him like this. Elena studied the manifests. But there's someone else. Someone Thomas trusted. Look at these dates. The shipment started 3 weeks before he died, right when he called you about making a deal. Adrian sat forward, ignoring the pain it caused. You're saying someone found out about the deal and killed Thomas to stop it? I'm saying it's possible. And if we find out who benefited from his death, we find out who's been trying to kill you. They worked through the afternoon, comparing timelines and financial records. Elena called Vincent, had him send over everything he had on Thomas's last few weeks alive. Adrian pulled up security footage from his own operations, looking for patterns. Around 4 p.m., Elena found it. Here, she said, pointing at a transaction record. 3 days before Dad died, someone accessed his main account, transferred $50,000 to an offshore account in the Caymans. That could be Thomas himself. Except look at the IP address. This was accessed from a computer at Rowan Shipping headquarters, not from Dad's home office. Elena pulled up more records. And here, the same IP address accessing shipping manifests, changing routes, redirecting cargo, all in the week before he died. Adrian was already calling Marcus. I need you to check Rowan Shipping employment records. Find out who had computer access 3 weeks before Thomas died. Cross-reference with anyone who's still working there. Marcus called back 20 minutes later. Got something. James Chen, the accountant from your dinner party, he was consulting for Rowan Shipping at the time, had full access to their systems. Elena remembered Chen from the dinner, quiet, watchful, supposedly just a financial consultant. But he'd been there when Kozlov challenged Adrian. He'd heard everything about the shipping routes, the business arrangements. Chen knew about the meeting at the docks, Adrian said slowly. He knew when we'd be there and what we'd be picking up. He set up the ambush. But why? What does he gain from this? Control, money, power. Adrian was already pulling up more files. Chen doesn't just launder money. He invests it. If he could destabilize my operations, destroy my reputation, he could swoop in and take over my entire network, become the new power broker in the city. And he's been using my father's identity to do it, making it look like the Rowan family is stealing from you, creating conflict between us. Which would have worked if you hadn't... Adrian stopped. Hadn't what? Hadn't chosen to work with me instead of against me. If you'd believed I killed your father, if you'd hated me enough, you would have been the perfect weapon against me. Chen probably counted on that. Elena thought about the alternative timeline where she'd stayed angry, stayed blind to who Adrian really was, where she might have helped destroy him without realizing she was destroying family. We need to find him, she said. Already on it. Marcus's voice came through Adrian's phone, still on speaker. Chen's not at his apartment or his office, but I'm tracking his financial transactions. He made a large withdrawal this morning. Cash. The kind you take when you're planning to disappear. He knows we're on to him, Adrian said. He's running. Or setting another trap. Elena looked at the manifests again. There's another shipment scheduled for tonight. Same docks, different pier. What if he's planning to finish what he started? Adrian was already moving, pulling on a jacket despite the way it made him wince. Then we get there first, set our own trap. You can barely stand, you're not going anywhere. This is my business, my fight. It's our father's legacy, our family. I'm going whether you like it or not. Elena stood, crossed her arms. And you're too weak to stop me. Adrian looked like he wanted to argue, then sighed. Fine, but we do this smart. Full security team. Backup plans. And at the first sign of trouble, you get out. Understood? Understood. They spent the next 2 hours planning. Marcus gathered a security team, 12 men, all armed, all loyal. Sophia arrived to handle legal angles, making sure anything they did could be justified as self-defense. Vincent came too, bringing documents that proved Chen's connection to Thomas's death. As sunset approached, they gathered in Adrian's study for final briefings. Elena stood to the side watching her brother. She still couldn't think of him as anything else. Coordinate everything with military precision. You okay? Sophia asked quietly. Not even a little bit. For what it's worth, I think you're handling this better than most people would. Finding out your husband is your brother? That's some Greek tragedy level stuff. At least in Greek tragedies, people have the decency to gouge their eyes out at the end. Sophia laughed. Dark, I like it. They drove to the docks in 3 cars, security spread between them. The waterfront was quiet, just the sound of water against pilings and distant ship horns. The pier where the shipment was scheduled sat empty under harsh floodlights. Too quiet, Marcus muttered. Spread out, Adrian said into his radio. Defensive positions. Watch for movement. They took up positions behind shipping containers, in the shadows of warehouses. Elena crouched next to Adrian, her heart hammering. This was a terrible idea, she whispered. Too late to back out now. A truck appeared at the far end of the pier, headlights cutting through darkness. It backed up to the designated container, stopped. The driver got out. Someone Elena didn't recognize. Then James Chen emerged from the shadows. He looked different than he had at the dinner party. Harder. More confident. He held a gun casually, like it was part of his hand. Come out, Adrian, Chen called. I know you're here. Let's talk like civilized people. Adrian stood slowly, hands visible. I'm here. Let's talk. Chen smiled. Look at you. Still can't resist walking into traps. Your father had the same problem. You killed Thomas Rowan. I made it look like an accident. There's a difference. Chen circled slowly. He was going to ruin everything. Make a deal with you, clear his debts, go legitimate. I'd spent 3 years building connections through his shipping network. I couldn't let him destroy that. So you tampered with his car, made him crash. I made him choose. I told him either he'd drive off that bridge high on pills he didn't know I'd given him, or I'd kill his precious daughter. Chen's gaze found Elena in the shadows. Hello, Elena. You're looking well for someone who just found out she married her own brother. Elena stepped out despite Adrian's hiss of warning. You've been watching me. I've been watching everyone, waiting for the right moment to make my move. Adrian getting shot was supposed to be the end, but you had to go play nurse, had to help him investigate. You complicated things. I'm good at that. Clearly runs in the family. Chen raised his gun, pointed it at Adrian. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign over your entire operation to me, every business, every account, every contact, and in exchange, I'll let you and your sister live. You can run away together, start over somewhere else. I don't care. And if I refuse, then I kill you both right now. Your choice. The standoff stretched. Elena could feel security positioned around them, waiting for Adrian's signal. Could feel the weight of everything that had led to this moment. Her father's lies, Adrian's secrets, the web of crime and family that had trapped them all. He's not going to shoot, Elena said suddenly. Both men looked at her. What? Chen asked. You're not going to shoot because you need Adrian alive to transfer those assets, and you need me alive because killing Thomas Rowan's daughter would bring attention you can't afford. Elena walked toward Chen, hands raised. You're not a killer. You're an accountant who got greedy. You tampered with my father's car from a distance, set up ambushes where other people did the shooting. You don't have the stomach to pull that trigger yourself. You want to test that theory? Yes. Because I'm betting that everything you've done has been about avoiding direct confrontation, about staying in shadows while other people take the risk. Elena was close now, close enough to see sweat on Chen's forehead. You're a coward, just like my father said. Your father was weak. My father was flawed and broken and made terrible choices, but he had the guts to face consequences. You don't even have that. Chen's hand was shaking. The gun wavered. Marcus moved from the shadows, weapon raised. Drop it, Chen. It's over. More security appeared, surrounding them. Chen looked around wildly, realizing he was trapped. This isn't over, he said. I have lawyers, connections. You can't touch me. Actually, we can. Sophia stepped forward, holding up documents. Vincent Marks has given statements detailing your involvement in Thomas Rowan's death. We have financial records proving you embezzled millions, and we have security footage from tonight showing you confessing to murder. She smiled. I'm a very good lawyer, Mr. Chen, but even I couldn't get you out of this. Chen's face went white. The gun dropped from his hand. It was over that quickly. Security restrained Chen while Marcus called Detective Sarah Chen. No relation, as it turned out. Police arrived within 20 minutes. Elena gave her statement, watched as they led James Chen away in handcuffs. Adrian stood apart from everyone, watching the lights of the police cars reflect off the water. Elena found herself walking toward him, unable to stay away despite everything. It's done, she said. Not quite. There's still the matter of annulling our marriage, making sure you're free of all this. And then what? You disappear again? Go back to being dead? If that's what you want. Elena thought about that, about going back to her life before Adrian, before learning the truth about her family. It felt impossible now, like trying to unlearn how to read. I don't know what I want, she admitted. I'm still angry, still hurt that you lied, but I also understand why you did it, and I can't hate you for trying to protect me. You should. I deserve it. Probably, but I'm tired of hating people I should love. Elena looked at him, really looked at him, saw past the Mafia Boss and the stranger to the brother she'd never known she had. Our father left us both his legacy, his crimes, his debts, his secrets. Maybe we're better off facing that together than alone. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to know you, not as my husband, that was never real anyway, but as my brother, as family. Elena held out her hand. Can we start over? Do this right this time? Adrian stared at her hand like it was the most precious thing he'd ever seen. Then he took it, his grip warm and steady. I'd like that, he said quietly. Good. Because you still owe me answers. About our mother. About the 20 years you were dead. About everything. I'll tell you everything. No more secrets. They stood there on the dock as dawn broke over the water, holding hands like the siblings they'd always been but never known. Over the next few weeks, things shifted into a new configuration. The marriage was quietly annulled, exactly as Adrian had planned. Elena moved into her own apartment downtown, something modern and clean with no history attached. But she visited the estate regularly, had dinners with Adrian where they talked about their father, and slowly built something like a real relationship. Michael found out the truth on a Saturday afternoon. Elena and Adrian told him together, showed him the birth certificates and documents. He took it better than Elena expected. 16-year-olds apparently had more capacity for accepting weird family dynamics than she'd given them credit for. So I have 2 older siblings instead of 1 sister, Michael had said. That's actually kind of cool. Does this mean I get to borrow your cars? He'd asked Adrian. Absolutely not. Worth a shot. Vincent Marks became a regular presence, finally stepping into his role as Adrian's biological father after 40 years of hiding. He and Thomas's memory formed a strange kind of peace. 2 men who'd loved the same woman, raised the same son in different ways, and ultimately wanted the same thing. Family, however broken. Elena went back to painting. The studio Adrian had built became her sanctuary, a place where she could process everything that had happened. She painted her father the way she remembered him, flawed and human. She painted her mother from old photographs, beautiful and complicated. She painted Adrian and Michael together, her family finally complete even if it looked nothing like what she'd imagined. Sophia became an unlikely friend, teaching Elena about the legitimate side of Adrian's business and how to navigate the world he inhabited. Marcus remained his charming, unreliable self, but Elena learned to appreciate his loyalty beneath the jokes. 3 months after the docks, Elena stood in Adrian's library, their library now, she supposed, looking at the Monet that had started everything. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Watching me that day? If you just ignored me, none of this would have happened." Adrian joined her, studying the painting. "If I'd ignored you, James Chen would have killed you the same week he killed Thomas. You'd be dead, and Michael would be alone, and I'd be still pretending to be someone else." He glanced at her. "So no, I don't regret it. Even the part where you had to marry your own sister? Even that. Because it led us here. To the truth. To family." Adrian smiled slightly. "Though I could have done without the 3 bullets. You're never going to let me forget I was worried about you, are you?" "Not as long as I live." Elena shoved him lightly, careful of his still healing shoulder. "You're the worst brother. I'm your only brother. Exactly, the worst by default." They stood together in comfortable silence, looking at the painting that had connected them before either knew what they were to each other. Outside, the gardens were in full bloom. Inside, the house felt less like a prison and more like a home. It wasn't a perfect ending. Elena still had nightmares about her father's death. Adrian still bore scars from the shooting. Michael still struggled with the truth about his family's history, but they were facing it together, the 3 of them, building something new from the ruins of what came before. Because that's what family did, Elena had learned. They lied and hurt and betrayed each other. They kept terrible secrets and made worse choices. They destroyed things and built them back wrong. But they also protected each other. They showed up. They held on through the worst of it and hoped that eventually the truth would be enough to start healing. Elena thought about the woman she'd been on her wedding day, terrified and trapped, and certain her life was ending. That woman had been right, in a way. That life had ended. But something else had begun. Something messier and more complicated, but also more real. She'd lost the father she thought she knew, but she'd gained a brother she never knew existed. She'd lost the illusion of a simple, safe life. But she'd gained the truth about where she came from and what she was capable of surviving. It wasn't the happy ending she'd dreamed about as a girl, but it was hers, earned through blood and lies and hard choices that had no good options. And standing in the library with her brother, looking at a painting that had started everything, Elena realized that maybe that was enough. Maybe happiness wasn't about perfect endings or lives without scars. Maybe it was about finding people worth bleeding for, about choosing truth over comfort, about building something honest from a foundation of lies. Her phone buzzed. Michael, asking if they were still on for dinner. "We should go," Elena said. "Michael hates when we're late. Since when does he care about punctuality? Since you started teaching him to drive, and he thinks he's adult enough to lecture us about being responsible." Adrian laughed. "That's my fault, isn't it? Completely your fault. You're a terrible influence. And yet you keep me around. Because you're family, I'm stuck with you." Elena smiled. "Come on, let's go before he sends another 12 texts." They left the library together, siblings bound by blood and secrets and choices that couldn't be undone. Behind them, the Monet hung in its frame, a painting of water lilies and light, beautiful and impermanent, just like everything else worth holding on to. The end.